When Doflamingo arrived at the port, Eau Rouge was already waiting here. Young master, Senor drove the boat and ran away first. We are trapped here, Eroge said with a very sad look. Hearing this, Doflamingo rolled his eyes and said, I told him to sail first. Didn't you see that Marine's warship is already going to blockade here? Then, Doflamingo asked again, can those wings behind you fly? Ha 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 ha. That's what you said. Eroge laughed loudly and said, how can someone from Sky Island know how to fly? As soon as Eau Rouge finished speaking, Doflamingo stopped talking nonsense to this reckless man, stepped forward and grabbed his arm and said, get ready. As a capable user, if you fall into the sea, you will die. After finishing speaking, before Eau Rouge could speak, the bat wings behind Doflamingo flapped and flew directly towards the distant sea. During the flight, Doflamingo activated his ability again and whispered, Beckman, Beckman. Speaking of which, the abilities of Beckman and Doflamingo can also have a synergistic effect. Doflamingo uses its ability to emit ultrasonic waves, but Beckman's Thunderfruit can really capture them. So in the next instant, Beckman's voice returned to Doflamingo's ear. I'm here, what's wrong? Beckman responded. I've already left Logue Town. How's the situation over there? Hurry up if you get the chance. Doflamingo arranged. He wasn't worried about Beckman's situation. After all, that guy wasn't an idiot. On the contrary, he was extremely smart. With Thunderfruit in his hand, if he wanted to run away, no one in Logue Town could really keep him. Dopo Rusalino harassed. Beckman quickly responded. That crocodile is probably about to be arrested, and that pale-complexioned, burly man with wine-red hair was seriously injured by Sakazuki, but he seems to have some strange ability, which has been activated. He ran away, and I couldn't find him. The civilians in the town were almost evacuated. Moria was wounded by Sakazuki, which makes perfect sense. But that guy crocodile was going to be captured by Marine, which Doflamingo didn't expect. Does he want to squat in a kiln for 20 years in advance? Damn, who let this bastard have nothing to do to attack the old man? Before Doflamingo could respond, Beckman said with a smile, I'm sure. Crocodile was pushed to the ground by Sengoku and Garp. He still wanted to struggle, but Garp gave him two big mouths that he loves most. Dead before leaving school. Lao Sha is really unlucky, Doflamingo said gloatingly. So, what is the most important thing about being a pirate? It's time to judge the situation. In the case of being besieged by Marine, as long as you run faster than your peers, then you are safe. Just like just now, he was also F***ed into the pit. Doflamingo was very sensible and ran away without saying a word. Crocodile was different. He confronted Sengoku in a fit of anger and got on top. The result now is that Doflamingo ran out of Logue Town, and Crocodile was caught by Marine. Of course, if you want to talk about running away, it has to be this fellow Moria. Has he already mastered the mystery of running away at such a young age? This guy can really escape. In the battle with Kaido in Wano-kuni, Kaido killed his entire team. Moria escaped with his strange ability. In the battle on the top of Marineford, Doflamingo led the pacifist to kill him. He was badly wounded, and Moria still slipped under Doflamingo's nose. It can be seen that the life-saving ability is first class. Okay, since the situation over there is almost settled, don't delay, and run quickly, Doflamingo said while flapping his wings. Soon, Doflamingo saw a boat moored on the sea in the distance, and he went towards that side. Just as he landed on the deck, he saw Beckman, who had been live broadcasting in Logue Town just now, was already standing in Hanny Oro's next to it. This guy also looked at Doflamingo with a stinky face and said, Yo, isn't this young master? Why is it so slow? Doflamingo's face twitched for a moment, and finally sighed. Thunderfruit claims to be invincible, so it's not bragging. If nothing else, this speed is outrageous. When Paluzolino's flashing fruit is moving, what kind of refraction operation is needed? It's not like Thunderfruit, just flash it and it's over. In the original story, Enel teleported randomly across the island, but now Beckman is obviously able to teleport long distances. Who can catch this? At this moment, Mihawk struggled and jumped from Doflamingo's armpit to the deck. He said angrily, Doflamingo, if you dare to do this to me again, I will kill you. Next time, definitely next time, Doflamingo said seriously. Mihawk always felt that this was not right, but he couldn't tell what was wrong, so he frowned, and finally glared at Doflamingo without saying a word. Lighting a cigarette, Doflamingo said with emotion, I came to Logue Town to watch the excitement, but it turned out to be a good thing, and I sent Crocodile in. You call it a fantasy. Beckman also exhaled a puff of smoke, and asked, now, how to arrange it? Doflamingo glanced at Senor and asked, how is North Blue? It's all arranged. Senor responded quickly. Torbull has decided to sit in North Blue and take charge of the family business. Cora, Pika, and Lao Ji will also be stationed in North Blue. Gradius, Diamante, Weir, Helding and others are already waiting for us at Whiskey Peak. The era of great pirates has already begun, so it is naturally impossible to stay in North Blue without moving at this time, and speaking of it, North Blue's business is pretty much already laid out. Doflamingo won't gain much by staying there, either. In contrast, as a pirate, Doflamingo is also preparing to enter the New World. With the channel of Donquixote family, it is naturally easy to enter the New World, but according to the rules of pirates, you have to go through the process, from the first half of the Grand Line, all the way to the New World, you can be regarded as qualified. Doflamingo also happens to have time. He hasn't been around the first half of the Grand Line very well, so he should seize this opportunity to experience this world. After entering the New World, Doflamingo is ready to seek Dressrosa. Speaking of which, the 7 Warlords of the Sea plan is about to be announced, right? What is the current situation? Thinking of this, Doflamingo felt that he should also get in touch with the people on Mariejois to inquire about the 7 Warlords of the Sea plan. When will it be implemented? And speaking of 7 Warlords of the Sea, I thought of the unlucky crocodile again. This guy. If there is no accident, he should be the first 7 Warlords of the Sea. As a result, he is now going to Impelton prison. Okay. Anyway, it's not very far from Upside Down Mountain, so let's go. Go to Upside Down Mountain, cross the Red Line, go to Whiskey Peak and join Diamante and the others. Doflamingo decided immediately. Senor heard the news and went to deliver Doflamingo's captain's order quickly, and Beckman also assumed the responsibility of the navigator and began to determine the course. Doflamingo looked at Mihawk again and said, thank you for taking the shot just now. Mihawk had calmed down at this time, and said very calmly, it's nothing, I just want to weigh a marine myself. Doflamingo thought it was funny to see this guy still looking arrogant, but he still gave Mihawk face and didn't mention these things again. He paused and said, now Marine should have sealed off Logue Town, and your small sampan must have been confiscated. Next, we are going to the Grand Line. Do you want to come with me? Mihawk was silent for a while and said, do I have any other choice? He is very courageous, and he can rely on a small sampan to surf around in the sea, but after all, he still has a boat. Now, if there is no boat, what choice does he have? He can't go freestyle, right? Doflamingo laughed and said, by the way, have you thought about joining our Donquixote family? Let's work together to turn the world upside down. But unfortunately, as soon as Doflamingo finished speaking, Mihawk shook his head decisively and said, no, I'm not interested in the upside down of the world. I want to pursue the ultimate of kendo, the pinnacle of swordsmen, and I want to become the world's #1 swordsman. How? With that said, Mihawk took out a folded piece of paper from his pocket, and after opening it, it turned out to be a list of major events. Several of the above have been crossed out. Then, under Doflamingo's puzzled eyes, Mihawk continued. This is the list of great swordsmen I made. I have already challenged some of them, but there are still many others. Next, I will follow this list. One, we went to find each other, so after we got to the Grand Line, we had to separate. Looking at Mihawk's serious expression and eyes, Doflamingo swallowed a few more words of persuasion. What reason is there to stop a man from pursuing his ambitions and dreams? Doflamingo thought for a long time, but couldn't come up with such a reason. What Mihawk wants is the name of the strongest swordsman. He has already made a plan and is implementing it step by step and down to earth. In this case, how can Doflamingo have the nerve to keep him? Thinking of this, Doflamingo grinned, and said with a blessing in his tone, he patted Mihawk on the shoulder and said, you know what? When I first saw you, I believed. Dracule Mihawk, you will definitely become the world's great swordsman. Mihawk's falcon-like eyes suddenly lit up, and a confident smile hung on his face and said, this is what should be done. After a short pause, Mihawk tilted his head again, pretending to be casual and said, after I win the title of the strongest swordsman, if you haven't been killed by Marine. Anyway, I'm fine. Time. Maybe I will come to you again. Foo-fur-fur-fur. Doflamingo looked at the arrogant Mihawk and said with a smile, okay, I will wait for your corpse. Whiskey Peak, not far from Upside Down Mountain, is the first stop of one of the 7 routes in the first half of the Grand Line. In the original story, A large group of bounty hunters gathered here to lure newcomer pirates from all over the world into the town and hunt them as prey. But now, the Great Pirate Era has just opened for 2 days, and there are not so many bounty hunters gathered here. Small towns are just ordinary small towns. At this time, in a pub in Whiskey Peak, Virgo leaned back in his chair, holding a newspaper in his hand, and was reading. The headline on the front page, of course, was about Roger's execution. After his last sentence, "Let's go find it." At the same time, newspapers have already begun to say that this era is called the Era of Great Pirates. And Doflamingo's phrase, "A new era of pirates has come," was also printed in the newspaper. Oh. Virgo looked surprised and said, "One of the culprits of the riot in Logue Town, San Crocodile, was arrested by Marine at the scene. HMPH, that bastard, he deserves it for daring to sneak up on the young master." Diamante took a sip from his wineglass and said. As soon as the voice fell, Helding, the tallest man in the tavern, shouted, "Boss, 2 more barrels of wine." There is a normal-sized girl sitting next to Helding, but despite her normal size, she is actually a giant who ate miniature fruits, Lily Ernst Mark. Her appetite is also very good, and she is constantly stuffing things on the table into her mouth. Chewing the food in her mouth, Lily couldn't help but ask again, "Young master, when will they come to us?" "Don't worry, it should be soon, just a day or 2. Virgo responded, then looked at the new news, and said happily, "My lord's bounty has changed. Let me take a look. Lily quickly pulled the reward notice in the newspaper, glanced at it and said, "Really, the current reward of the young master is 222 million Bailey." Doflamingo himself didn't do anything too exciting in Logue Town, but he fought against Marine on the live broadcast after all, and he had seriously injured Sakazuki in Sky Island before. So Naval Headquarters thought about it, and adjusted the bounty for Doflamingo, increasing the bounty to 232 million Baileys. It's not very high, but it means a bit. Not only Doflamingo, but also several new bounty warrants. Gecko Moria, with a bounty of 43.2 million berries. Dracule Mihawk, with a bounty of 7 million Baileys. That's right, it may be because he didn't pay much attention to him, because Mihawk's regular gold is less than 100 million. As for Moria, he's had a run-in with Marine in West Blue before, so it's not the first time he's been offered a bounty. Then, there is Ben Beckman, with a bounty of 37 million Baileys. And Eau Rouge, but his arrest warrant has no name, only a question mark, only one photo, and a reward of 4.2 million Baileys, and there is also no prescribing. In addition to some new rewards, there was also an announcement issued by Marine in the newspaper. The general meaning was to appease the ordinary people who were dazed by the treasure of One Piece, and then warned the villains on the sea. All in all, everything is fine, and our Marine has the ability to settle this turmoil. I hope everyone will give Marine enough confidence and time. In the end, don't mistake yourself, you are still young, don't embark on the path of crime. Meaning, that's probably what it means, but whether people in the sea can listen to it or not depends on fate. Just as the few of them were chatting and laughing, suddenly, the door of the tavern was pushed open, and then a thin figure ran in. The figure quickly ran to Virgo and Diamante, whispered, "Guess what I found?" As soon as this guy finished speaking, Diamante slapped him on the head and said, "If you have anything to say, don't be so secretive, Gladius." That's right, the figure of this little devil is exactly Gladius. Gladius gave Diamante a displeased look, but he didn't bother with this guy, and then whispered, "I went to the bathroom in the back alley just now, and I heard someone talking. It seems that there is a black market on the island. Paramecia's devil fruit." "Devil fruit is nothing more than a rare thing for us," Diamante responded calmly. And Virgo seemed to be a little interested, and asked, "What is the specific history?" "It's Paramecia hot fruit," Gladius said a little excitedly. "Hot fruit?" Virgo thought for a moment, then looked at Diamante and asked, "Have you brought the devil fruit illustration book?" "At Helding's," Diamante responded. At the same time as his voice fell, Herding had already taken out a thick book from his pocket. Of course, this was for ordinary people. For Helding, it was just a little toy. He put the book on the table and said, "Here, Wilhelm." Virgo quickly opened the devil fruit illustrated book and searched for it. After a while, he found Paramecia a riri fruit, and then he raised his head suddenly, looked at the crowd with a confused face and said, "Why is riri fruit there are two? Isn't devil fruit both unique?" As soon as he opened his mouth, the rest of the people also looked over curiously. Sure enough, there were not two fruits drawn in the devil fruit illustrated book, they were both called hot fruits. But the sharp-eyed Diamante quickly pointed to one of them and said, "Look, this is the introduction of the revised version. This fruit can change its own temperature, but the lowest can only be 1 degree. After the fruit was discovered, the devil fruit academic community is more inclined to rename it as high-temperature fruit, but it has not really made a conclusion until now. In the original story, there are 2 hot fruits. The first is the ability of the banner hunter Don Aquino, and the second is the ability of Owen in the Big Mom pirate group. Everyone didn't get too entangled in this situation. Virgo looked at Gladius and asked, "Which hot fruit is it?" Gladius was stunned for a moment, and said with a confused face, "How'd I know? I heard the hot fruit, but didn't see it." But just after Gladius finished speaking, Diamante, who was not interested just now, rubbed his chin, studied the illustrated book, and couldn't help but said, "Hiss. Don't say, no matter which one. This hot fruit, they seem to be very powerful, don't they?" "It's quite powerful." Virgo nodded, looked at the others and said, "Why don't we go and buy this fruit?" As soon as Virgo made this proposal, Gladius, the little devil, said quickly, "I can't buy it, this hot fruit has been reserved." "Who?" Diamante asked with an unhappy face. He is also very interested in this fruit. "Big Mom Pirates," Gladius said immediately. Then, everyone fell silent. Big Mom Pirate Group. That is indeed very fierce, and it is considered a very powerful group in New World, especially the captain Charlotte Linlin, who was a member of the Rock's pirate ship back then, and was called the strongest woman in history, pirates. Now in the place of New World, Toto Land of the World has been established, and the power is very powerful. Isn't it worthwhile to offend the Big Mom Pirates for a hot fruit? In particular, the Big Mom Pirate Group has a very close relationship with the Dark World. The Big Mom Pirate Group itself is engaged in intelligence business in the Dark World, and has connections with organizations large and small. The Donquixote family also had some unimportant relationships with them before. Cooperate. Of course, these are not the key points. The key point is Charlotte Linlin, whose bounty is as high as 1.4 billion Baileys. "It seems that this devil fruit has no destiny with us," Diamante said with a little regret. Virgo was silent for a moment, and then said, "How about? Let's ask the young master first." Hayarding's eyes flashed with anger and said, "If the young master agrees, I will be the first to do it." "Hey, looking at you like this, it seems like you have a grudge against the big MBH pirates," Diasti asked curiously. "All the giants in Elbaf have a grudge against that bastard Charlotte Linlin," Helding said angrily. Speaking of which, when Helding was young, he was still friends with Charlotte Linlin. But there are many grievances in it. In short, Charlotte Linlin killed the oldest warrior of the giant clan because of cravings, so the giant clan is very hostile to her. Seeing that the rest of the people felt okay, Virgo quickly took out the phone bug, and was going to contact his young master to see if he could help the Big Mom Pirates. Meanwhile, Twin Heads is not too far from Whiskey Peak. Doflamingo just stepped out of the empty lighthouse. He originally wanted to find Dr. Crocus to discuss with him about platinum lead disease, but Dr. Crocus didn't seem to be here. Not even Laboon, the whale that hit the red line. Since there is no fate, Doflamingo does not intend to force anything. It was also at this moment that the phone bug on his body rang. "Virgo. I'll be there soon. What's the matter?" Doflamingo picked up the phone and asked softly. "Whiskey Peak, the black market. It is said to be a black market, but there is actually nothing particularly mysterious about it. It is not that different from an ordinary market. If there is any difference, it is that the crowd is different. The ones in the ordinary market are generally civilians or something. In the black market, whether they are doing business or shopping, they are basically shady people. Of course, the goods must be different. The goods here are either weird or illegal, and there is not much difference in other aspects." At this time, in a huge prickly pear room on Black Market Street, a man nearly 5 meters tall was sitting in front of the counter. This guy is the son of Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, Charlotte Owen. He is the 4th son of Charlotte Linlin and is a triplet with Katakuri and Daifuku. Big Mom Pirates did not come to East Blue Log Town to participate in the execution related to Roger, but Big Mom Pirates have always attached great importance to intelligence capabilities. 20 years later, they have become the #1 in the pirate industry. There are many connections with the Dark World. So even if Charlotte Linlin doesn't plan to come, she will send people to investigate the intelligence and confirm the information on the scene. Charlotte Owen was sent to do just that. However, he didn't really board the Log Town, he just watched from a distance for a while, then cooperated with the information on the live broadcast, confirmed the situation, and then left. When he returned to the Grand Line, Another news came from his family. It was from his brother Katakuri. Katakuri people are in Alabasta, just near him, and they are investigating about Roger. That's right, since Roger boarded Raftel, many pirates in the New World have become interested in that place, and then in addition, it is precisely because Roger boarded the Raftel that he conquered the entire territory of the Grand Line and was recognized as the One Piece. It's just that the current big pirates are very embarrassed. Regardless of whether you want to go to Raftel or not, anyway, you should know more or less about the information and intelligence there. And, most importantly, whether you go or not, you can't let new pirates board Raftel anyway. Otherwise, do you still have face? Therefore, many forces are still investigating Roger, studying how the Roger pirates landed on Raftel, and how did they find that island. After careful investigation, Kaido, Charlotte Linlin and others learned the information of the historical text of the road sign. Nowadays, although Charlotte Linlin has this thing in her hand, it is only for collection. Because the text on it cannot be translated, she has no idea of the meaning of the historical text of this road sign. The reason why Katakuri is in Alabasta now is because he found out that the Roger pirates were looking for the historical text here. At the same time, Katakuri also felt that, as the oldest country of mankind, and the Nefertiti family was also descended from 20 kings, Alabasta should know some important information, right? However, the specific matter about Roger has not been investigated yet. Katakuri first had an unexpected harvest, that is, he got information about the hot fruit in the black market, quickly paid the deposit, and then notified that it happened to be near Whiskey Peak. Owen went to get the goods. Moreover, this fruit itself was prepared by Katakuri to give to Owen. From Katakuri's point of view, Renugo's ability is very powerful. Didn't his younger brother want to become a capable person a long time ago? In this way, it is just right to eat hot fruit. Owen is waiting for the hot fruit at this time. He waited for a few minutes, and at the back door of the counter, a strong man came over with a safe suitcase in his hand, put it on the table and said, "Master Owen, this is what we agreed on earlier, Paramecia reheat fruit." Of course, the big Nom pirates have a devil fruit illustrated book. Before coming here, Owen had already faxed the information and design of this fruit, so he said calmly, "Open it, and inspect the goods." "Yes." The strong man answered, then entered the password, and quickly opened the suitcase. Sure enough, there is a devil fruit in it, which looks orange and looks a bit like a big pineapple. A gleam flashed in Owen's eyes. At least from the appearance point of view, there should be no problem, and it is exactly the same as the pattern on the devil fruit illustrated book. Very good. Owen laughed, and also picked up a suitcase from under his feet. Although they are pirates, in the business of the dark world, they still have to be creditable, because it is completely unnecessary for such insignificant things to ruin their reputation. The price of nuo fruit is 600 million Baileys. Katakuri has already paid over 200 million, and Owen only needs to pay another 400 million. At the same time, in the corner of the store, behind the vase, a miniature girl is observing the situation here. She saw that Owen had confirmed the devil fruit situation, and after he was about to pay for it, he lurked next to the devil fruit suitcase in a flash, twisting and turning. At this moment, Owen opened the cash box, revealing the brand new currency inside, and said, "You count." When he said this, he glanced out of the corner of the eye, and then his face changed, and he scolded, "Where's my fruit?" As his voice fell, the strong man who traded on the opposite side also shifted his eyes from the money to the devil fruit box, and then saw that there was still a devil fruit box just now, and it was empty now. What the hell is going on? Fortunately, Owen reacted quickly and suddenly noticed something. When he turned his head, he saw a guy who looked like a small human race, carrying his huge devil fruit, running towards the outside of the store. "Damn thief. I will crush you to death," Owen cursed angrily. I didn't care about any money anymore, so I raised my legs and chased after him. But that little human guy seemed to be running very fast, and by the time Owen chased after her, she had already run out of the door. Before he had time to think about it, Owen opened the door with only a gap, and was just about to take a step outside, when he saw a fist that was about the same size as others. The fist was already wrapped with a pitch-black armament hockey, and there was still a palpitating, terrifying aura. Wan Chong explosive fist. A roar came from outside the door. In the next moment, Owen was directly hit by the huge fist. The powerful force first hammered him into the house again, and then, the violent explosion quickly engulfed the huge cactus house. The person who made the move was none other than Helding. This guy has eaten the ability of Paramecia explosive fruit before, and now he is a walking bomb. Combined with his own racial advantages, he is very strong anyway. When this punch went down, the explosion caused was enough to blow up the warship to pieces. Even though this guy Owen reacted extremely quickly, using armament hockey almost immediately to harden his whole body, but he still couldn't completely resist the bursting blow. The giant's iron fist and explosion directly injured him seriously. When the gunpowder smoke dissipated, I saw that Owen was lying in the ruins immobile at this time. His body was tattered, black smoke was coming out, and blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. It looked like he had been severely injured. You. What? People? Owen asked indignantly. His tone was weak, his eyes widened. Are you in control? Helding snorted coldly, completely ignoring this guy. Then, ignoring Owen, who was seriously injured at this time, Helding turned around and left. Owen looked at the figure of the giant family and wanted to struggle a few times, but in the end his eyes went dark and he passed out directly. At this moment, on Helding's shoulder, Lily asked curiously, why don't you kill him? It's not necessary, just get the fruit. I heard that this guy is the brother of Katakuri, Charlotte Linlin's favorite son. If he kills him, then we and the Big Mom pirates will never die. Helding said very calmly. Lily didn't ask any more questions when she saw this, but said with a little expectation, can we go to Little Garden when the young master comes? Then we can see Dory and Brogy. Yeah, speaking of this, I can't help but want to leave now, Helding also said expectantly. It didn't take long for the members of the Big Mom pirates who heard the movement to find Owen, who was seriously injured in the ruins. Quick, quick, contact Katakuri to my lord. Go and see if there are any witnesses around, and ask who did it. You dare to attack our Big Mom pirates? We must not let them go. It's a giant. Someone said they saw a giant, and he did it. Giant? The intelligence capabilities of the Big Mom pirates are still very good, and they have already investigated the matter that night. The giant who attacked Owen, called Helding, has been in Whiskey Peak for a long time, and he and some companions often haunt the tavern. After inquiring about the situation with the people in the tavern, a conclusion was quickly drawn. It was the Donquixote family who attacked Owen. In Albana, the capital of Alabasta, Katakuri hung up the phone bug in his hand with a gloomy face, and said coldly, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Damn guy. The port of Whiskey Peak, where Doflamingo's ship slowly sails. However, Doflamingo on the deck did not intend to disembark. As soon as the ship ladder was released, Virgo and others who had been waiting for a long time in the port quickly boarded this huge battleship that could accommodate the rest and activities of the giants. My lord. Gladius was the most excited, and excitedly rushed over to hug Doflamingo's waist and said, long time no see, how are you? I'm fine, thanks to your cleverness this time, Gladius. Doflamingo smiled and rubbed Gladius's hedgehog-like head. If Gladius hadn't drunk half of his juice and wanted to pee, he wouldn't have known that Riran fruit had appeared on Whiskey Peak. Isn't this almost missing it? As for Heldingo and others' attack on Owen with a violent hammer and snatched the nuo fruit, Doflamingo responded with a supportive attitude. Just kidding. What happened to the Big Mom pirates? Lousy is the elite. They are all out to play pirates, so they must not just be groveling blindly. It is necessary to cooperate with those bigwigs in New World. After all, Doflamingo does not have the strength to annex them now. But it doesn't mean that you have to bow your knees in order to cooperate with them. On the contrary, if you pass by with a rushing attitude, people will not take you as someone worthy of serious treatment. There are not too many people who want to please them in the sea, and you have to queue up when you pass by. So if you really want to communicate with the Big Mom pirates and other New World bigwigs, you have to fight first to show your strength and qualifications. People who are not qualified to play cards at the table are the cards in everyone's hands. Who will talk to the cards? So as soon as Virgo contacted Doflamingo, Doflamingo directly supported it, F*K Owen. Facts have proved that Owen may have good strength, but under Helding's giant iron fist and explosion, he was caught off guard and was instantly caught off guard. There may be a suspicion of a sneak attack, but this is enough to prove that Helding has fully grown in the Donquixote family during this period of time. This is true whether it is hockey or the fruit ability. Everyone boarded the boat, and no one wanted to stay. Beckman held the rudder in his hand and headed directly towards Little Garden with the prepared record pointer on his wrist. Helding sat cross-legged on the deck, showing off his strong muscles, and said excitedly, Young master, I punched that guy. I have to say, this fruit ability is really suitable for me. The last time Diamante and I collected bills at North Blue, there was a guy who dared to make a big noise with us. I went up and slapped him into pieces. The explosive fruit matched my physique, strength, and attack power. Unbeatable. Hayarding's explosive power is very strong, because his powerful pervert can punch 10,000 tons of punches. Now this kind of punches of 10,000 tons combined with an explosive fruit, who the hell can stand it? By the way, young master, how is your Elbaf's spear of our giant clan doing? After Hayarding finished blowing himself, he asked this matter again with concern. When Doflamingo heard this, he said quickly, I just want to ask you and Lily some key points. I guess if I understand this key point, I can master it. Speaking of which, Mihawk got off the boat at Twin Point before, and he walked along a small sampan tied to the pier of Twin Point very silkily. Doflamingo estimated that the small sampan should belong to Dr. Crocus. As for Mihawk, he and Doflamingo will take different routes. There are 7 routes in the first half of the Grand Line, and Sahak will go to the rest. But before this guy left, he also gave Doflamingo a copy of his own experience in kendo practice. If Diamante's guidance to Doflamingo before was to lay the foundation, then the basic training methods of swordsmen are not bad. One is to swing a knife, and the other is to exercise their own strength. The purpose of swinging the knife is to let you, unity of human and sword, to point and strike, and to exercise your strength, so that you have the strength to cut everything. Mihawk's basic practice is not bad. Now, the experience he gave Doflamingo should be regarded as an advanced version of the swordsman. Don't look at Mihawk as young, but in fact, his background and skills in kendo have been polished to perfection. What is worse now is the actual combat experience. At a young age, he has reached the end of the path of ordinary people's swordsmanship. He only needs to constantly fight with others, sum up, summarize, and finally form his own Dao. And in this process, he will naturally have to challenge countless swordsmen, and once these challenges are successful, there is no doubt that Mihawk will be able to win the title of the strongest swordsman as a matter of course. In other words, Mihawk's experience for Doflamingo belongs to the complete interpretation of the conventional sword hero's path. As long as Doflamingo can absorb it all, he can also call himself a great swordsman. As for whether the peak can be climbed, perhaps as Mihawk said, a swordsman like him who cannot be called pure cannot really reach the peak of a swordsman. But it doesn't matter. Doflamingo himself didn't think about becoming the world's #1 swordsman or anything. There was Dracule Mihawk in the first 20 years, and Roronoa Zoro in the next 20 years. These two guys are full of talent in kendo. How can Doflamingo have a chance? Diamante took the experience handed by Doflamingo, hesitated for a moment and said, Young master, is it really convenient for me to read the experience of this great swordsman? It's convenient. That guy told me to find a great swordsman and give me advice after reading it. I thought, the only one in our Donquixote family who can be called a great swordsman is you. After reading it, maybe there will be something to gain, Doflamingo said with a smile. Diamante breathed a sigh of relief, and said with a smile, Don't worry, my lord, I will definitely study this experience carefully, and after I understand it thoroughly, I will teach it to you. Well, let's not talk about this. What about the hot fruit? Doflamingo asked. Here, here, said Lily Ernst Mark, raising her hand. Then, I watched her take out a cloth bag from her waist, and the hot fruit was contained in the cloth bag. Doflamingo took the fruit, weighed it and said, Among Paramecia, this fruit is already considered very powerful. Paramecia's devil fruit is full of strange things, but Doflamingo thinks that all devil fruits that involve rules are very strong. The hot fruit should be regarded as one of them. After that guy Owen mastered this ability, he could easily burn the river and boil the sea, which shows how powerful it is. It's just that this guy has few roles, so he failed to clearly show the terrifying power of this fruit. After a few comments, Doflamingo looked at the crowd and asked, Which one of you wants to eat? They said it was everyone, but in fact Gladius, Helding, Lily and others have all eaten devil fruit. As for Beckman and Eau Rouge, the same is true, and this matter has nothing to do with them. If the priority is given, it must be Virgo and the others. Therefore, the so-called you are actually Virgo and Diamante. As soon as Doflamingo finished speaking, Virgo shook his head and said, I don't need it, I actually hope to get the powerful zone ability. Diamante said that he is interested in this fruit. That's right, Virgo is a gymnastics and fighting practitioner. His physical fitness is very good, and hockey's practice is also very good. Now he has already mastered the second stage of armed color. In Virgo's own words, he doesn't really want to be a demon fruit power, unless it is Zone's ability that he thinks is suitable. So he would rather not eat devil fruit before encountering this ability that he likes. Seeing this, Diamante smiled and said, Ha 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 ha, young master, let me do it. They are all veterans who started with Doflamingo. Diamante will not be polite to Doflamingo. Of course Doflamingo would not mind, raised his hand and threw the hot fruit to Diamante and said, "Take it." After finishing the matter of the hot fruit, Doflamingo hastened to introduce Eau Rouge, Beckman and others, and Diamante, the old North Blue seniors, to get to know each other, and they will be a family from now on. At the same time, he also explained to everyone the matter of Rosinante, who is currently being taken care of by Mahabasi, who is almost imprisoned in the base of the cabin. Amidst the cheerful chatter of people, the ship moved quickly towards prehistoric Islanda Little Garden. At the same time, Crocodile, the sand crocodile who had taken a shortcut for 20 years and arrived in Imperton ahead of schedule, was also assigned and imprisoned in the Eternal Hell. In fact, with Crocodile's current level, it is far from qualified to enter Eternal Hell, but it happens that there are no people in Eternal Hell, and this guy has a bad mouth. Generation greeted all of them. In a fit of rage, Magellan used public affairs for personal gain, and sent Crocodile directly to Eternal Hell anyway. Wearing a black and white prison uniform, Crocodile leaned against the shadow of the prison with a gloomy complexion. After a while, he suddenly found the guy lying on the ground snoring in the prison opposite him. Why did he look so familiar? After Crocodile stood up and took a look, he said in surprise, "Good guy, isn't this Golden Lion Shiki? He's my roommate?" It was also at this moment that Shiki seemed to feel some movement, and the sleepy Shiki suddenly opened his eyes, sat up and looked towards the opposite side, frowning slightly. "You kid looks familiar, name it." Prehistoric Islanda Little Garden. The mainstream of this world is islands and oceans, and within the Grand Line, due to various climate, celestial phenomena, and magnetic field factors, the environment of each island is very different. Over time, many unique cultures and independent ecosystems have been formed. Like prehistoric island Little Garden, as if the time here is still in the ancient times, the creatures called ancient species in Zone's ability are everywhere on this island. At this time, in the depths of the island's dense forest, Virgo and Beckman were walking together. The two of them pushed aside things like vines while observing the situation, as if looking for something. After a while, Virgo couldn't help asking, "Is it really possible to find devil fruit here, Beckman?" "I don't know." Beckman shrugged and said, "But this island has been nearly 100 years without any outsiders, and is a prehistoric island. There may be some ancient species of zone or even phantom beasts. Where's the devil fruit?" Virgo's face twitched, and he finally sighed. "I always feel that Dover is deliberately finding fault with us." While saying this, Virgo looked up at the mountains in the distance. Now Doflamingo was in the hills, and with him were 4 great giants. Needless to say, there are 2 of them. One is Lily, who has recovered her giant form after her ability has been removed. The other is Helding, and the last 2 are the 2 captains of the giant soldier pirates, Blue Ogre Adori and Red Ogre Brogy. Doflamingo and his group have been coming to Little Garden for a few days, and Herding found his 2 seniors when he came here, and he was very excited at that time. The 4 giants forcibly drank all the wine on the boat. Helding invited Dory and Brogy to go together, and when they return to the New World, they can also visit Elbaf. But it was obvious that neither Dory nor Brogy had any intention of leaving. The 2 of them would continue to fight here until a winner could be decided. Also, being a giant race, Helding certainly knew that they valued the glory of battle more than their own lives, so he didn't say anything to persuade them. But after finally seeing a junior of the giant family, Dory and Brogy were also very happy. When Halding mentioned the matter of the giant pirates, these 2 guys immediately let Halding arrange it himself. From this moment, he is the new generation of giant soldier pirates is in charge. With the affirmation of Dory and Brogy, after this, Helding can recruit the giants in Elbaf openly. After finishing these trivial matters, Heldingo naturally thanked Doflamingo. Dory and Brogy drank so much wine, and knew that it was Doflamingo who brought Heldingo to find them. He was also very grateful to Doflamingo. So this scene happened now. That kid Herding is still too young. He is pretty good if he can use Elbaf's gun by himself. It is still immature to teach others. Let me tell you, the so-called Elbaf's gun is actually the most important thing. Ah, that kind of invincible, unstoppable aura of slashing out with one knife, Brogy excitedly said to Doflamingo. And Doflamingo was standing on the top of the hill at this time, exactly at the same height as these giants, holding Zindu in his hand, as if he was brewing the gun of Elbaf. No, the most important thing about Elbaf's gun is faith, yes. Dory also excitedly told Doflamingo. But at this moment, Doflamingo seems to have entered a strange state. He could clearly hear the voices of Dory and Brogy, but it seemed that the trivial words inside had been filtered out. Important factors such as momentum and belief are automatically printed in my mind. Combined with the gun of Elbaf that Helding told him in detail before. There seems to be a subforce in the body, ready to move. Just as Dory and Brogy were arguing whether belief is important or momentum is important, the two stopped their dispute almost at the same moment, and looked at Doflamingo on the top of the mountain together. Conquerors. Dory frowned, slightly surprised. Didn't expect to be able to see conquerors here. The posture of the king. This move. Brogy also stared at Doflamingo closely, as if to see what kind of strength Doflamingo can play. At this moment, Doflamingo holds the heart crossing in his hand, his eyes are closed, and the aura on his body is condensed and undisturbed. It seems that he can vaguely see strands of blood lingering around him. 2 jets of black lightning flashed. It can be seen with the naked eye that the aura that was originally condensed around Doflamingo began to flow at a certain moment. The aura seemed to turn into flowing water, shrinking rapidly, and all wrapped around the heart in Doflamingo's hand. No. This is. Brogy looked at this scene with some confusion. You say it's the gun of Elbaf, it looks like it is. Conqueror's winding. Dory also muttered in surprise. That's right, there seems to be some other things mixed into the gun of Elbaf. In an inexplicable state, Doflamingo actually wrapped his conquerors around the heart source. Self-taught is true. Just when the 2 giants were shocked and surprised, Doflamingo's eyes opened suddenly. At this moment, Dory seemed to see 2 blood-red rays of light burst out from Doflamingo's eyes. Then, I saw Doflamingo take a sudden step forward. This step seemed to have stimulated the muscles and strength of his whole body. Almost the moment his foot landed, the steadfast heart in his waist also followed, slashed forward. Drink. When Doflamingo made this blow, the chi in his body naturally uttered from his throat, and then he roared, Elbaf's Spira Hikoku. No target ahead, but Dory and Brogy can feel it, Doflamingo made it. This slash drew a huge circle in the air, as if driving ripples, it broke through the air. After 3 or 5 breaths, in the sky that is not known how many meters away, the thick cloud layers seemed to have endured some unbearable force, and suddenly exploded a huge circle, and the mist inside was completely wiped out up. It's as if someone wiped that piece off with an eraser. Although there is no reference. Dory covered the corners of his brows with his hands, looked at the high sky, and then said, but it seems that Hikoku was cut by one person, which is more fierce than the 2 of us combined. It was mixed with Conqueror's hockey after all. Brogy frowned. Looking back, I saw that Doflamingo was standing there in a daze, with a dull expression, but his eyes seemed to be remembering something. Seeing this, Dory and Brogy didn't bother Doflamingo, but guarded him silently, lest any beasts that don't open their eyes disturb him. Senior, what happened to the young master? Helding stood aside and asked a little curiously. He was experiencing his light flash just now, Dory explained. Conquerors is supposed to be the most difficult hockey to practice, but he didn't expect that he would have such good luck, somehow mastered the winding of Conqueror's hockey. Brogy also said with emotion. At this time, Doflamingo's mind was filled with all kinds of messy information. He actually learned a lot, but it can be said that it was miscellaneous but not perfect. At this moment, it seemed that all the things he had learned before had been integrated in his body. It is no longer a separate system and power, but integrated in the hands of Doflamingo, and it is his own power. If Mihawk was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that Doflamingo had entered a state of epiphany at this time. Among swordsmen, people with extraordinary talents often leave such rumors. After that, these swordmasters who have experienced this kind of thing can almost open up their own, brand new genre. But in the beginning, these were called my flow. Diwang boxing, Elbaf's spear, hockey's practice, fighting skills, physical skills, swordsmanship. The skills that are not suitable for Doflamingo are all eliminated one by one, and the rest are left in Duo Fu in Brother Lang Ming's mind. Everything is essence. After a long time, Doflamingo's slightly absent-minded eyes gradually regained their brilliance. Then, he covered his head and said in a daze, my head hurts. Well, ha 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 ha, Brother Dover, you're lucky. You have mastered Elbaf's gun, and you've also learned the Conqueror's entanglement. With your current strength, I'm afraid that even if you go to New World there's a place, Brogy said with a big laugh. Dory deliberately raised the bar again. You haven't been back to the New World for decades, how do you know what the New World is like now? Asshole. Brogy slapped his chest and said, are you going to fight? Afraid of you. Dory shouted as he pulled out his long sword that was about to be scrapped. Then, with Doflamingo's expression still unresponsive, the two fought again, quickly messing up the surroundings. And Doflamingo didn't care about these two guys. He looked down at his palm and squeezed his fist suddenly. A wave of hockey power that was different from the armed color, but more wild and violent, quickly entangled him. Free on the fist. Conquerors. Entwined? Doflamingo grinned. It seems that his talent is still very strong. The Magnetic Drum Kingdom is a winter island that remains cold throughout the year. At this time, in the palace of the Magnetic Drum Kingdom, Doflamingo was sitting on the king's desk, holding a phone bug in his hand, chatting with someone. Not far away, the king of the Magnetic Drum Kingdom was lying on the ground, not daring to move. Really? Was the 7 warlords of the Sea Project rejected once because of Marine's opposition? Fufurfur, as really interesting news. Dover said with a smile. He sat cross-legged on the wide desk, built a small table with heavy state secret documents, and put hot coffee on it, while Doflamingo was holding a spoon and stirring the coffee. There was another voice from the phone bug, and Doflamingo frowned and said, "You know, Freven's platinum lead disease is getting worse and worse, and the high-level executives are almost unable to seal the news. Yeah, I'm in the magnetic field. Drum Kingdom, after all, this is a world-renowned medical power, and my ship doctor, Dr. Nelson, really hopes to communicate with the top practitioners in the medical industry here, to see if he can get rid of platinum lead disease." On the other side of the phone bug, in a certain administrative building in Mariejois, a senior official of the government of the world is sitting in his office with his legs crossed. "Master Doflamingo, you should also be very clear that there is no cure for platinum lead disease. As early as many years ago, our world government had studied the treatment of platinum lead disease together with the national doctors of the Drum Kingdom, but in the end, nothing came of it. The government gave up on Frevens because it was really impossible to save him. We have thought of many ways," the official said with a smile. "It has nothing to do with me, and I don't have too many expectations about it. Regarding the platinum lead business, let's talk about it next time, and continue to talk about the 7 warlords of the sea," Doflamingo said softly. Speaking of this, the official's expression became a little more serious. He sat up straight from the sofa, and said to the phone, "Master Doflamingo, I can tell you very clearly. The 7 warlords of the sea plan has begun to restart, but the opposition to this plan is also very fierce, not only from the marine side. In fact, there are also many opposing voices in the franchise countries." After listening to the introduction for a while, Doflamingo asked softly, "Then 5, what do you think about this plan?" "How dare I speculate on this?" the official responded with a guilty conscience. "We can't figure out the will of the 5 adults." However, after a short pause, he continued, "In the past 2 days, His Excellency Kong, the Marshal of Marine, has been in Mariejois, and has communicated with the 5 adults several times in a row. Judging from the mood of His Excellency Kong, his mood doesn't seem so wonderful. Fufurfurfurfur. It seems that the 7 warlords of the sea plan will soon be implemented. You promoters, do you have any good candidates?" Doflamingo asked with an evil smile. "To put it bluntly, as long as 5 elders is willing to work hard to promote this plan, Marine cannot bear the pressure at all. Now, judging from some clues, the 5 elders really intend to promote the 7 warlords of the sea plan. No way, it's only been more than 2 months since Roger's execution. According to the data analysis compiled by the various intelligence departments of the CP agency, the number of pirates in the same quarter has increased by 70% compared to last year. Obviously, this is just the beginning. Maybe the era of pirates, as you said, has already arrived. Our side also has to pay attention to it, and formulate various plans in advance to deal with it. Do you really wait for the pirates to attack Mariejois before reacting? The 7 warlords of the sea plan had the purpose of curbing pirates, and now it is used directly, which is much more convenient for everyone," the official said with emotion. After a pause, he replied with a bit of a toothache. "It's a bit embarrassing to say, when we first submitted the letter of intent for the 7 warlords of the sea project, we gave a suitable candidate, who was in New York at that time. The sand crocodile, which is developing well in world." "Why him?" Doflamingo asked with a smile. "Because that guy said he wanted to challenge Whitebeard. What we need is someone who is willing to fight against the traditional New World pirate forces to become the 7 warlords of the sea. Unfortunately, Crocodile was caught in Logue Town now. It seems to be imprisoned in Imperton." The official sold Doflamingo the confidential information on Mariejois. "Think of a way to use me as a new candidate. I'm also very interested in 7 warlords of the sea," Doflamingo said with a smile. The official was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Master Doflamingo, I don't know if I should say something or not." "Just speak up." Doflamingo raised his eyebrows. "Cough. You are not very popular on Mariejois. There are many nobles in the world who wish you could come sooner. Then what, especially after you became a pirate? Many nobles in the world, or I feel that you have sullied the blood of 20 kings, and in this case, there is a lot of resistance for you to become 7 warlords of the sea. The official said very cautiously. Theoretically speaking, most celestial dragons will not ask about the various policies and systems of the world government, but he will indeed discuss some. Even if they don't really take care of these things, those officials don't dare to really confront them. In case the celestial dragons have a whim one day and insist on inspecting your work, they find you if you did something he hated, wouldn't you be cold? But now on Mariejois, the mainstream of celestial dragons hates the self-defeating Homingu family, and Doflamingo even became a pirate. This situation is very embarrassing. It's just a group of insects. Doflamingo snorted disdainfully, and then said, you can look at the arrangement. If it doesn't work, I can also take this position myself. You come to pick it up yourself. The official was stunned for a moment, swallowed and said, I see, I will try my best to help you arrange it. Then, so be it. Contact me when you have any new news, and you will benefit from it. Doflamingo ordered softly, and then hung up the phone. Then, he picked up the cup of coffee from the table, took a sip and said, it tastes pretty good, I said, would you like to get up and sit for a while? The king of Magnetic Drum Kingdom lay on the ground, quickly shook his head and said, no need, I'm fine like this. Don't worry, as I said at the beginning, I came here only for 2 things. The first thing is that my ship doctor hopes to have a good communication with your doctor here and take away some study materials. No question? Doflamingo asked. No, medicine has no borders and belongs to all intelligent life. Our Magnetic Drum Kingdom has always welcomed this kind of medical exchange. The king quickly replied. The man in front of him just released a burst of momentum, and the army defending the royal family in the country was wiped out and fell into a coma. After seeing the situation, the king was very sure that this person could not be offended and had to serve him well. Especially, he felt a little familiar with Doflamingo itself, and adding the surname Donquixote made him even more confused. Until just now, he heard the whole conversation between Doflamingo and the unknown person on the phone bug. During this period, some words like, world nobles, reminded him of the weird rumors on Mariejois many years ago. Among the great nobles, that incident is called the celestial dragons falling into heaven. It seems that the protagonist is the one laughing? If you look at it this way, he's even more irresistible. Very well, I hope that the second matter can also be successfully completed. As long as these 2 matters are completed, we will leave the Drum Kingdom soon. Doflamingo took another sip of coffee and said softly. It must be done. The devil fruit is in my treasure house. My guard Captain Dalton has brought your men to look for it. It must be found. The paramecia munch fruit, the king hurriedly said. I hope so. Doflamingo got down from the table, took a cup of coffee, and stood in front of the window, looking at the snow scene outside. After a while, Doflamingo suddenly said, is there a very strange doctor here called Corazon? Yes, she is called a witch by some people. When I was young, she was already a very powerful doctor. Now, she should be 120 years old, right? Do you want to see her? The king asked quickly. Doflamingo was silent for a moment, then finally shook his head and said, no need. At the moment when Doflamingo's voice fell, the door of the study was pushed open, and after seeing Beckman playing with a devil fruit in his hand, he walked in and said, compared with the illustrated book, it is indeed the munch of paramecia fruit. Foo. Doflamingo laughed, walked to Beckman's side, took the devil fruit and said, very good. How is Nelson's side? Beckman cleared his throat slightly and said, cough. Some doctors donated a lot of medical books to him for free, and Eau Rouge is helping him to load them on the ship. It may take a little time, and a day or 2 will be enough. Oh. Doflamingo rubbed his chin, and then said, since you have to wait for 2 days, then go and tell Mahabasi, it's all here now, and my brother's illness must be taken seriously. Some doctors show him, no matter what the situation is, give me a few needles. Having said that, Doflamingo paused and said, as for the medical expenses. As soon as he looked at the king patted his chest and said, don't worry, it's mine. I'll let the doctor prescribe the best medicine for him. Well, it doesn't have to be too good. My younger brother is very thrifty, so let's give him those expired overstock goods. The main thing is that the quantity should be large enough, and it is best to eat the kind every day. Doflamingo smiled wickedly. He smiled and agreed. King of the Drum Kingdom? Are you sure this is your brother 3? Drum Kingdom is not too far from Alabasta. The 2 countries can be said to be neighboring countries. However, it is obvious that the strength of Alabasta far exceeds that of the Magnetic Drum Kingdom. The Magnetic Drum Kingdom is far bigger, and it is still winter, and the supplies are not abundant enough, and the population cannot carry too much. And Alabasta, just the capital of Albania, with a standing army of 600,000. Later, Crocodile engaged in pirate stealing the country. Here, after a set of operations, Alabasta fought wars with millions of people. It can be said that in the world of pirates, it can be regarded as a scorpion tail, unique. It is also because of the extremely strong conventional military power that Alabasta is also a world-class military power. Unfortunately, Alabasta did not emerge a leader with strong personal strength, otherwise Crocodile would not have suffered so badly. At this time, on the route to Alabasta, Doflamingo's ship is sailing in the sea. Inside the cabin, Rocinante's residence. Rocinante was sitting on the sofa at this time, watching the waves outside through the round window. He almost forgot. How long has it been since he went out to breathe fresh air? Since being brought aboard by Doflamingo, he has been kept in this room almost all the time. Although he was very depressed, he didn't dare to act rashly. Rocinante also made up for the current attitude of Donquixote family towards him. His cunning and insidious elder brother may not have complete trust in him. But he shouldn't have really doubted himself very much, otherwise, with his character, he should have killed himself long ago, just like he killed his father without hesitation back then. So this should be a test. As long as he endures this test, Doflamingo feels that has no doubts about him. Then he can successfully break into the upper echelons of the Donquixote family. For this. So what if I feel a little wronged? I am a strong marine. Just when Rocinante had prepared himself psychologically again, the door knocked lightly, and before Rocinante could reply, it was already opened. Afterwards, the fat and greasy Mihawk walked in with a smile. Rocinante, are you feeling better? Mihawk stepped forward and asked. Rocinante didn't speak, but nodded earnestly, as if telling Mihawk that I'm fine. You can't speak yet. Sigh. It seems that your condition is still not getting better, but don't worry, you know. We passed the Drum Kingdom before, and the Drum Kingdom is a world-renowned medical power. There are many powerful doctors there. The doctor, Nelson, even brought your medical records to participate in the seminar. Mihawk sat beside Rocinante and said. Rocinante? So why are you telling me this? My lord said that you are his blood brother, and he will try his best to cure you, don't worry. Mihawk patted Rocinante's shoulder again and said. At this moment, the door that was not closed just now was pushed open again, and then Dr. Nelson came in with a medicine jar in his hand. Oh, Rocinante, you seem to be in good spirits. Dr. Nelson greeted Rocinante with a smile. He seemed to be in a good mood, but half of his face had already been stained a strange white color due to platinum lead. Dr. Nelson, who was originally plain and ordinary, now looked hideous. After performing a series of examinations on Rocinante, Dr. Nelson sat on a chair beside him and said, I was in the Drum Kingdom, and I talked to many famous doctors about your condition, and everyone gave me a lot of inspiration. This is the new medicine I prescribed for you, don't worry, you will be able to take it. Rocinante looked at the rice bowl-like medicine that Dr. Nelson put on the table. After a moment of silence, he wrote on the paper with a pen. How long is this amount? How many pills do I need to take a day? After reading the note, Dr. Nelson laughed and said, Rocinante, you misunderstood. After discussing with many experts, you still need to take serious medicine for your condition. This medicine jar is your daily dose. Eat with confidence. If you don't have enough, we have more. Rocinante. Just when Rocinante was a little confused and at a loss, Mihawk had a gentle smile on his face, and he held Rocinante's shoulders and said, Come on, Daluo, it's time to take medicine. Then, ignoring Rocinante's desperate struggle, Mihawk opened his mouth and poured the whole tube of medicine into it. After Rocinante finished taking the medicine in pain, Mihawk asked in a careless manner, How is it? Are you full? You're welcome if you don't have enough. I still have some, Dr. Nelson said with a smile. Finally, with Rocinante's pained expression on his face, Mihawk and Dr. Nelson left. At the same time, on the deck, Doflamingo sat cross-legged under the mast, with a table in front of him, and some wine jugs, wine glasses, fruit plates, appetizers and so on were placed on it. But these are not the point. The point is that there is a devil fruit that looks like it has grown lips, which is right in the middle of the table. Beckman, Virgo, Diamante and others all sat at the table, eating and drinking together. After a while, Dr. Mihawk and Dr. Nelson came out of the cabin. After Doflamingo saw it, he waved at them and said, "Come and sit down." Dr. Nelson sat down next to Doflamingo, picked up the glass very naturally and drank. He has joined the Donquixote family for so long, and he has gotten used to the atmosphere here. How should I put it? There are really not many good people in the family, let alone good people. Even for normal people, there are not many of them. To the outside world, they are cruel, violent, and evil, but to the inside, as long as you are a member of the Donquixote family, they will treat you as a family member. Over time, Dr. Nelson is also used to seeing other people as his family. After eating 2 mouthfuls of appetizers, Dr. Nelson touched his somewhat stiff white Madara, sighed and said, "I think my disease may not be cured, my lord, Luo and Lami, I will have you in the future took care of me. Don't be discouraged, we have already offered a reward of 6 billion for op fruit, which is 1 billion more than the government of the world. We will definitely find him and help you cure your illness." Doflamingo also patted with a little emotion. He patted Dr. Nelson on the shoulder and said, "To be honest, at the beginning, Doflamingo was just for Trafalgar Law, and the rest, including Dr. Nelson, were more or less additional. But now after getting along for so long, Doflamingo has developed a certain relationship with him, and now he really wants to find op fruit to save their family." After chatting for a few words, Doflamingo looked at Mahabe and asked, "How is it with you?" Mahabes immediately said, "I have been studying for several months, and I have a thorough understanding of Rosinante's small movements, instincts, habits, etc. But that guy still refuses to speak now, so for the time being, I have no choice but to hope that our can of strong medicine will go down. That guy can't take it anymore. The condition is starting to improve, he can talk." That's right. The reason why Doflamingo and others beat Rosinante to death is because that guy is a traitor and an undercover agent on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's because this dog is very hard-spoken. After so long, it's the time. Why don't you want to speak? So Doflamingo and others can only think of this kind of ruthless move to defeat Rosinante's defense line, so that he can't stand the situation anymore. The condition has improved, and he can speak by himself. Then try to treat him for a few more days, Doflamingo said after thinking about it. Then, he pointed to the munch fruit on the table, and asked, "Virgo, Senor, is any of you interested? This fruit is very good." Virgo immediately shook his head and said, "I said before, except for Zone, I don't consider the rest." Senor smiled and said, "I don't plan to become a capable person for the time being, my lord. There are too many capable persons on our ship. I'm worried that in case of force majeure, everyone falls into the water, and Virgo can't save it alone. Come." "Ha ha ha ha, that's right, if we encounter a huge storm, wouldn't we all be finished?" Diamante said with a big laugh. Originally, he was not a capable person, but now he has become a capable person of Nuanu fruit. Another advantage of Diamante's ability to become a hot fruit is, for the Cervantes that is being built in the capital of 7 waters, besides Beckman, there is another energy source. The thermal energy of Diamante must also be able to meet the demand. Although what Senor said was a joke, after Doflamingo looked around the crowd, he found that what this guy said was not unreasonable. Because Donquixote family came into contact with the devil fruit business very early, they stocked up a lot of devil fruit very early on. Coupled with the opportunity during this period, in short, the cadres present, at a glance, are almost all capable by. What the hell? If something force majeure happens, it's really dangerous. Thinking of this, Doflamingo pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said, "In my opinion, we need to find some friends who are good at swimming." Murloc. Beckman frowned. "That's right, it doesn't need to be so powerful. At the critical moment, it's enough for us to get into the water." Doflamingo nodded immediately. "I began to miss Master Tom from the capital of 7 waters in my heart again. If he could become the shipwright of Donquixote family, wouldn't he be alive? In my impression, there are not many Murloc masters, right? Jinbei should be the most outstanding one. But obviously, it is impossible for Jinbei to get along with himself at this stage." Thinking of these things in his heart, Doflamingo couldn't help imagining mermaids again. Speaking of which, when he was young, how many of them did his cousin raise at home? Doflamingo was really envious. Alabasta, the capital Albana. On the eaves of the top floor of the palace, a tall figure is sitting here. Charlotte Katakuri. He almost overlooked the entire palace, but no one noticed his existence. At this time, Charlotte Katakuri was holding her arms on her chest, constantly covering the entire palace with observation hockey, and listening to some news. And in the depths of the palace, the still young Nafarutali Cobra seemed to be receiving his guests. Needless to say, How could I do such a forbidden thing as the king of a franchised country under the world government? Cobra interrupted the narration of the person on the opposite side, Rangshu said. But possessing a historical text is a felony for the world government. According to our investigation, Alabasta has at least one historical text. We have no other intentions, just want to know the records on it, nothing more than history, retorted the leader of a team of scholars. The leader is a woman, and she looks quite beautiful. If Doflamingo is here, he can recognize it immediately. Isn't this guy Nicole Albia? Cobra's eyes sank and he said, I don't know where you came from, and where you got the news, but let me tell you, Alabasta doesn't have any historical texts, and we are not interested in those things at all. The oldest country of mankind, our Alabasta welcomes scholars from all walks of life to come and communicate, but guys like you who hide their heads and show their tails are not worthy of trust. Of course Cobra knows that Alabasta has a historical text. It is in the cemetery of the royal family, below the funeral hall. He is even very clear about what the information recorded in the historical text is related to. Judging from part of the information passed down from generation to generation by Alabasta, although this historical text cannot be translated in degrees, the historical text undoubtedly records the secret of the legendary ancient weapon Pluto. Pluto is the legendary weapon capable of destroying the world. Cobra is not willing to disclose this information to a group of guys who claim to be scholars but hide their heads and show their tails, and they are completely untrustworthy. What's more, he even felt that the ancestors deliberately left this historical text containing the information of Pluton in the funeral hall of the royal family, which must have a deep meaning. Maybe one day in the future, the Alabasta and Nafarutali clan will need the power recorded on it? Thinking of this, it is even more impossible to tell outsiders about the situation in the main text of history. Anyway, Cobra just insisted, we don't have it here. Albia is also very helpless, this Cobra will not get into it. In the end, after arguing for a while, Albia and his party left the palace unhappy. To tell the truth, Cobra has a good temper. If you were a king with a more violent temper, what are you guys who dare to ask me for the main text of history? I screwed your head. Leader, what should we do now? After walking out of the palace, a scholar looked at Albia and asked. Albia was silent for a moment, and then said, don't worry, just lie dormant for a while. It happens that Alabasta also has a lot of historical documents. We are here to recuperate. Recently the government of the world has been hunting us more and more closely. Before, only people from the secret cipher Pola CPAA of the government of the world were investigating their whereabouts, but recently, Albia and his group discovered that Marines seem to have begun to hunt them down as well. After finding a hotel to stay, Albia and the others temporarily dismissed. The sun in Alabasta is very hot, so Albia didn't want to go out for shopping, and felt a little irritable, so she just sat in the shade of the trees in the yard to cool off. But not long after she sat on the stone pier, a voice suddenly entered her ears. You know the historical text well? Albia was stunned for a moment, then looked back suddenly, and saw a thigh. She looked up stiffly, and saw a man who was a little taller than the small tree in the yard, standing behind her, staring at her. There is no doubt that this guy with explosive height is Charlotte Katakuri. In the palace, he almost listened to the entire conversation between Albia and Cobra. Albia didn't know who this guy was, and when he came back to his senses, he immediately shook his head and said, I don't understand what you're talking about at all. Katakuri frowned slightly, and then said, there is no need to hide anything. I was in the palace just now, and I heard the whole conversation between you and Cobra. Albia's face froze, and at the same time, he slowly touched his waist, where a dagger was hidden. If necessary, he could sneak attack or kill himself. But at this moment, Katakuri said, I'm not interested in who you are or where you came from, so you don't have to be too hostile to me. I just ask some questions. History text among them, there is a red one. Does this kind of historical text have any special function? Albia's expression was serious, but she didn't intend to speak at all. Seeing Albia's incooperative attitude, Katakuri was not in a hurry, and said softly, you don't need to take the dagger hidden in your waist. It is completely meaningless to me, in front of me. Don't even think about committing suicide. I just heard your internal conversations, saying that the government of the world is strictly hunting you down, right? If you don't answer my question, I will arrest you all and send you off. Go to the hands of the government of the world. Albia's face twitched, and finally said, One Piece Roger is not the first person to discover the existence of Raftel. Huh. Katakuri said with surprise in his eyes. No, before him, everyone thought that the final island was the Waterstar Island. No one knew that the existence of the so-called Raftel is Roger the Pirates discovered. No, as early as 800 years ago, Raftel has been discovered, but because of some unknown reasons. We are also investigating the history. In short, all the news of Raftel has been the world government. It has been concealed and erased, and only the historical texts that cannot be destroyed are scattered all over the world, vaguely recording some relevant information. And the crimson historical texts, according to our investigation, have a total of 4 pieces, Owen said. Katakuri had calmed down a bit, and he wasn't very interested in the mystery behind it, so he asked directly, what do they represent? The road sign, the crimson historical text, is the historical text of the road sign. It records the road signs that can go to Raftel. After collecting the 4 historical texts of the road signs, you can get the location of Raftel, Alabasta said in a deep voice. After listening to this explanation, Katakuri's eyes became clear. No wonder Roger that guy sneaked to their cake island and rubbed a copy of his mother's red history text. So you were looking for the Raftel signpost? But they can't understand the historical text at all. This guy in front of him seems to have the ability to translate the historical text. After noticing the change in Katakuri's eyes, Alabasta said in a deep voice, I've already answered your question. Katakuri looked at Alabasta and said softly, my name is Charlotte Katakuri, from the Big Mom Pirates. Why? Big Mom. Alabasta was stunned for a moment. She must have heard the name before, and she thought this man looked familiar before, but now that she thinks about it. Charlotte Katakuri, isn't it a bounty of more than 300 million shells? Lee the Big Pirate. In the name of Big Mom Pirates General, I invite you. Ms., join our Big Mom Pirates. We have a piece of red. In your words, it is the text of the history of the road sign. Are you looking for are they? As long as you are willing to join us, that historical text will be open to you. Katakuri invited calmly. Alabasta immediately refused. Impossible, we are scholars, I will not be with you pirates. Katakuri stared at Alabasta for a moment, seemed to sense the woman's firm refusal, and then said, do you know what a pirate is? Huh? Alabasta was a little confused. Why did he suddenly discuss this? The so-called pirate is what you want to get, no matter it is by stealing, robbing or whatever, you must get it anyway, Katakuri said softly. The moment the voice fell, he also shot. With Albasta's strength, how could he be able to resist Katakuri? I saw Katakuri precisely hitting the back of Albasta's neck. Alabasta didn't have time to say anything, and she passed out. Grabbing Alabasta in his hand, Katakuri also felt much happier. Among other things, I have been investigating for so long, some of the secrets about Roger, and I finally got the answer. Are the 4 road signs historical texts? I don't know where the remaining 3 are? But it doesn't matter, as long as one of them is mastered, it is enough, because the next person who wants to board Raftel will inevitably fall into the trap because of such a piece of historical text, and take the initiative to find it in their hands. Soon, Katakuri left Alabasta's capital Albana with Alabasta, and headed for the port of rapeseed flowers. At the same time, Donquixote Doflamingo's ship also slowly sailed into the port of rapeseed flowers. Beckman bit a cigarette, locked the rudder, and asked Doflamingo with a smile. If I remember correctly, you originally planned to travel to Alabasta, right? But it was delayed because of the Logue Town incident. Are you going to walk around here this time? Hearing this, Doflamingo stood on the deck and looked at the rapeseed flower port, which indeed has a rare exotic style. He followed his gaze to the distance, and when he came out of the port, its 10 desolate sky deserts. After thinking about it carefully, now Alabasta is not interesting. Crocodile has been taken to Impelton, and the country is in a stable state, so there is nothing interesting. So in the end, Doflamingo sighed a little and said, forget it, come again when you have a chance. Alabasta is really too big. If you want to play it well, it will be impossible in half a year. I will talk about it later alright. Now we are going to resupply on a long voyage here, arrange everything, and let's go straight to the Sabaody archipelago. On the market street of Rapeseed Port, Doflamingo had a kebab in one hand and a bottle of beer in the other, enjoying himself. Hey, don't tell me, this roasted camel meat is really good. Doflamingo took another big bite of the meat and said to Virgo beside him. Virgo's face was covered with oil at this time. He stuffed a bunch of grilled scorpions in his hand to Beckman who was beside him and said, try it, it tastes good. Beckman looked at the grilled scorpion in his hand with disgust, his face twitched for a moment, and he waved, Gladius. What's the matter? Gladius was drinking fruit juice to quench his thirst, and asked Beckman after hearing this. Come on, high calcium products, eat to grow tall, don't you always want to grow tall like the young master? Then come and eat more. Beckman said with an evil smile. Then he gave Gladius the grilled scorpion in his hand. Gladius innocently looked at the Doflamingo, who was chatting with the stall owner at this time, and was about to add 2 more skewers of roasted kidneys. Finally, he ate the roasted scorpion with a cruel heart. Not to mention, it might be really delicious. As soon as he took a bite, Gladius said excitedly, "It tastes really good. Let's have another skewer." Virgo, the baked scorpion recommendation ambassador, immediately distributed another skewer to Gladius, and then said, "There are also grilled lizards here, 050, is also a local specialty. I got it and it was delicious." After speaking, he stuffed Gladius with a bunch of grilled lizards. Doflamingo ate the mixed skewers of camel and mutton, and couldn't help but said, "I didn't realize that you have such a strong taste before, Virgo. I've always believed that whenever you go to a place, you must taste the local specialties." Virgo responded bluntly. "Alabasta's specialty is roasted camels. Not scorpions or lizards," Doflamingo retorted without hesitation. "That's not right, scorpions and lizards are also featured," Virgo insisted. Doflamingo was too lazy to argue with him, and after drinking the beer in his hand in one gulp, he spread his hands and said, "Give me another bottle of this camel milk beer." "No problem," the stall owner said happily. After eating and drinking, Beckman went to a small shop selling local specialties and bought a desert suit. Looking at this guy's attire, Doflamingo looked a bit like an Arab walking in the desert in his previous life impression. "Envious?" Beckman asked with a smile, wrapped in a turban. Doflamingo rolled his eyes at him, and then asked, "Shopkeeper, is there anything I can wear at my height?" "Yes, it just so happens," the shopkeeper said excitedly. "Last month, there was a man who was taller than you, the customer, and ordered a set for me. After that, I had nothing to do and made another set. The set is about the same shape as yours. I originally wanted to keep it for an exhibition. Look at it." Not long after I finished speaking, the shopkeeper actually got a set of Doflamingo clothes. Doflamingo was very happy at this time, so he bought it and replaced it. How should I put it? There is nothing to look at. This kind of special clothing is actually mainly functional. The temperature difference between day and night in the desert is very large, and the intensity of direct sunlight is very high, so I have to wrap myself up to avoid sunburn. Can resist the cold at night. Really want to say good looking, actually not. Wearing Doflamingo is just for fun. But not to mention, this kind of material is relatively breathable, and it is so thick, not only does it not feel hot, but it also has a feeling of heat insulation, which makes Doflamingo, which celebrates the sun, comfortable. When several people were chatting, laughing and having fun, Beckman suddenly saw a tall figure walking towards the port in the distance, raised his brows and said, "Hey. That guy is about to catch up with you too. Looks like we're taller than both of us combined." Beckman's height is over 2 meters, and Doflamingo's height is more than 3 meters, adding up to 5 meters. Doflamingo was curious for a moment, and followed Beckford's line of sight to look there. Sure enough, a strong man with a struggling woman under his arm was walking this way. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, then asked in surprise, "Katakuri?" "Katakuri?" Beckman was a little confused, then he seemed to think of something and said, "Gillette Kataku? That guy named Owen that I met at Whiskey Peak before? Speaking of which, I saw the Big Mom pirate's ship at the port just now." Gladius moved closer to Doflamingo and said, "Doflamingo? Why didn't you tell us when you saw it?" Doflamingo said, hitting Gladius on the head. Perhaps because of Doflamingo's disguise, Katakuri didn't notice them at all, just thinking these guys in heavy desert suits were locals. "Put me down, you damned pirate. I won't translate the historical text for you people." Albia struggled to get out of Katakuri's control. But it was obvious that with her small body, it was impossible to break free. On the other side, Doflamingo squatted on a stake, took a sip of milk beer, and said with some doubts, "Nicole Albia. Why would she mix with Katakuri? It looks like this woman was kidnapped by Katakuri? From the current point of view, Katakuri should come to Alabasta to do something. Then he may have discovered the specialness of Albia, so he is going to capture her, bring the Big Mom pirate group? In my impression, in the original story, there shouldn't be such a situation. It is estimated that something was changed by the fan of this little butterfly. But these don't matter. What Doflamingo is thinking about is, should Katakuri be tied up when Katakuri is not in New World and is out of touch with the main force of the Big Mom pirates? Charlotte Linlin, that dead old woman, takes Katakuri very seriously, and Katakuri can also be said to be a person who has a deep influence on the Big Mom pirates, and all his younger brothers and sisters respect him very much. If Katakuri is captured, the first plan is to use him as a hostage in New World to negotiate with the Big Mom pirates or something. However, Doflamingo can't take this matter. Allow. Sometimes Charlotte Linlin is very cold-blooded and ruthless. As a big pirate, she may not be willing to talk to Doflamingo. But there is a second plan. It is estimated that the 7 warlords of the sea plan will be implemented soon. Doflamingo intends to fight for this position. With the identity of 7 warlords of the sea, many of his follow-up plans can be quickly completed. Expand. The government of the world needs 7 warlords of the sea to fight against the increasingly powerful pirate forces in New World. Doflamingo captured Katakuri of the Big Mom pirates at this juncture and gave it to the government of the world. Maybe it is a good idea, a way to claim the position of 7 warlords of the sea. Of course, there is another factor, that is, when it comes to New World, the Big Mom pirates must settle the old score on Whiskey Peak with their Donquixote family, and Doflamingo also needs to stand up in New World. At that time, there is a high probability that the two sides will have a fight. Before that, take advantage of Katakuri's single, and get rid of him first. When the time comes to fight the Big Mom pirates, you can also lose one opponent. No matter what, it's all money. While drinking milk beer, Doflamingo thought about these gains and losses rapidly. At this moment, Albia, who was struggling, tilted her head and froze for a moment, and her and Doflamingo's playful eyes just converged. After a moment of surprise, Albia shouted, "Help me." Although she had a bad impression of Doflamingo when she was in Ohara, but in the end, Doflamingo did not do anything bad to Ohara. After a long time, it can be proved that this guy did not treat Ohara tell the secret to the world government. So for Albia, this guy Doflamingo, no matter what, is much better than this Katakubu who wanted to kidnap her at the slightest disagreement. Katakuri thought that Albia was calling for help to those passers-by in the market, and said indifferently, "Give up, woman, no one can save you, at least here in Alabasta, no one." At the same time, Beckman also suggested to Doflamingo, "This is a good opportunity. Get rid of Katakuri here first. When we come to New World, we will face less pressure when we face the Big Mom pirates. Then do it." Doflamingo responded softly. On the other side, Katakuri had just finished speaking cruelly to Albia, and then, from the corner of his eye, a dazzling thunder seemed to appear. This caused Katakuri's pupils to dilate instantly, and before this guy could react, the lightning had already stuck to his face. Sound, lightning kick. Beckman's figure flashed out from the lightning, and with a whip kick, he flew directly on Katakuri's face. Katakuri really never expected that in Alabasta, there would be people who would dare to attack him. At the same time, Beckman attacked first, coupled with Thunderfruit's speed, Katakuri really couldn't keep up. There was severe pain on the face, and then the feet were pulled up by the powerful kicking force, and the whole person was lifted from the ground. The huge body was like a cannonball, and was kicked away with a bang. At the same time, Beckman stretched out his hand and took Albia, who was originally under the armpit by Katakuri, in his hand. As soon as this sudden situation appeared, the bustling market suddenly fell silent, and then, a large number of customers and stall owners all fled away screaming. Long time no see, Albia. You are really embarrassed." Doflamingo squatted on the stake, and hit Olby who had just been put down by Becky and said hello. Albia looked a little embarrassed at this time, hesitated for a moment, and thanked Doflamingo. Thank you for saving me." "No. It doesn't have much to do with you, so you don't have to take it to heart." Doflamingo frowned, and then asked, "Speaking of which, how did you get involved with that guy?" Thinking that Doflamingo is considered an insider, Albia didn't hide anything, and said, "We were originally looking for the historical text in Alabasta, but somehow, I was targeted by this guy. He asked me about the red history text, and then he wanted to force me to join the Big Mom pirates." At the same time, Katakuri covered his cheeks and fought from the ruins. A stream of bright red blood just flowed out of his nose. At this time, Katakuri's face was very gloomy, and his emotions were extremely furious. Katakuri swept his gaze, and quickly locked onto Beckman, Doflamingo and Albia beside him. Both Beckman and Doflamingo were dressed in local costumes, which made Katakuri a little confused at the first moment. "Good guy. This Alabasta is really Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Can you meet this kind of werewolf in any market at the port? It is indeed a world-class military power, with a strong martial spirit." But as soon as the idea came up, Katakuri saw Doflamingo's face clearly. He may not be impressed with Beckman, but he still recognizes Doflamingo. Especially the Donquixote family had been in Whiskey Peak before and nearly beat their own brother Owen to death. Doflamingo. Katakuri looked over there angrily, and said in a deep voice, "Our Big Mom pirates have no grievances with your Donquixote family before. Why did you attack my brother in Whiskey Peak first, and here in Alabasta? Do you want to fight with me again? Doflamingo grinned at the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, Katakuri, in broad daylight, bright and bright, you dare to kidnap a beautiful lady. This is simply outrageous. I Don Quixote Doflamingo can't see you being so despicable. The disciples. Katakuri. For a moment, he even thought that Doflamingo was King Marine. No. Why didn't you have such a sense of justice when you sold Nigo in North Blue? What's more, everyone is a pirate. What are you pretending here? Are you kidding me? Katakuri's eyes darkened, and he said, this is your Don Quixote family's declaration of war against our Big Mom pirates? Oh. Doflamingo raised his eyebrows, and said with a mocking smile on the corner of his mouth, don't be so naive, the war started as early as Whiskey Peak. Katakuri. HMPH. Katakuri snorted coldly, and then his arms surged rapidly. Then, under everyone's gaze, a trident gradually grew out of this guy's arm. Logia. Beckman raised his eyebrows in surprise. No, it's not Logia. Doflamingo denied this statement, and then added, this guy is a special paramecia waxy fruit capable person. The situation is a bit similar to Logia, but it's not. It is said that he is very famous in New World, known as the Perfect Man. He has never been defeated in the Big Mom Pirates since his debut. Never defeated? Beckman was even more surprised. Is this guy so good? But when I kicked it just now, why didn't I feel anything special? Fooferfer, never defeated. It sounds very powerful, but it also proves that he rarely challenges people who are stronger than himself. Doflamingo mocked. After Katakuri heard this, a murderous look flashed in his eyes. He was joking. Is Katakuri the kind of person who bullies the weak and fears the hard? This explanation of the bastard Doflamingo is somewhat of a personal attack. So without any nonsense, Katakuri instantly hung a powerful armament hockey on the trident in his hand, stomped on it, and rushed towards Doflamingo. At this time, Katakuri's aura was very fierce. With his 5-meter-long physique with a strong sense of oppression, he charged with a heavy weapon, and he was extremely fierce. Albia, who was standing beside Doflamingo, exclaimed and was shocked. Look again. Doflamingo is still drinking milk beer on the stake. Hey backquote. Albia shouted nervously. Doflamingo raised his hand to signal her to be quiet, and said softly, don't panic, my subordinates are also very strong. As soon as Doflamingo's voice fell, Beckman took the lead and turned into lightning, blocking Katakuri's front in an instant. He also landed with one foot, and the lightning flashed. Unlike before, this time Katakuri is not unprepared. It can even be said that observation hockey is always on. Or say that Katakuri's talent and knowledge is very powerful. He is only 26 years old now, but observation hockey has already awakened. Directly enter the state of foreseeing the future. The naked eye cannot judge the trajectory of Beckman's kick, but he has already seen through the future. The trident in his hand blocked forward, a powerful force erupted, and then he saw Beckman strike first but then arrive, kicking Katakuri's predicted trajectory. With a bang, armament hockey swayed twice. Then, without saying a word, Katakuri pushed and picked the trident in his hand, just caught Beckman's leg, lifted Beckman into the air, and pointed his other hand in the direction, growling. The rice cake burst. However, before he finished his sentence, he seemed to see something in his eyes again. He immediately ignored Beckman, held a trident, rolled forward, and quickly dodged from the spot. In the next second, a huge iron fist descended from the sky, and the person who made the strike was none other than Helding. Wan Chong blast. Hayarding roared angrily. Although the punch missed, the power was indeed terrifying. Hayarding's heavy punch first smashed a huge deep pit tens of meters into the ground, and then a violent explosion followed, detonating the deep pit on the spot, and the blasted rubble was chaotic. Gunpowder smoke everywhere. Katakuri dodged the blow. His feet were not steady, his future vision had been activated again, and he jumped high on the spot. Sure enough, a tiny little girl like a little human was right where Katakuri was originally. The little girl held a fork for eating, and swiped across, originally intending to sweep Katakuri's ankle. Don't underestimate such a playful blow. You must know that Lily is a giant. If this blow hits the ankle, Katakuri will also be injured. As soon as the blow was missed, Lily's reaction speed was also very fast, and her figure immediately swelled up, and the fork in her hand also became bigger, and stabbed Katakuri's stomach from bottom to top. Katakuri was in the air, but his movements were not slow, and the trident in his hand slammed down. The gigantic fork collided with the trident precisely. At the same time, Diamante appeared out of nowhere, and with a long knife in his hand, he slashed out and took Katakuri's head straight. Katakuri borrowed his strength from the air, held up the trident in his hand, and then performed a handsome backflip in the air, dodging Diamante's slash. From Beckman's shot to Diamante's slash, it was really too late, but it was fast. Everything seemed to be completed in just a split second. And Katakuri's performance has to be called excellent. He avoided all the offensives perfectly. After landing, Katakuri spun the trident half a circle in his hand, pointed at Beckman and said, "It's useless, the number is meaningless to me. Should I say it or not, this guy already looks very cold, coupled with the series of gaudy operations just now, it seems that he is more than capable." When he opened his mouth at this moment, everyone just felt. Good guy, let him pretend arrive. Beside Doflamingo, Virgo grabbed two of them from his waist, and then said in surprise, "No, I lost my saber." The senor at the side couldn't help but said, "Wake up, you are not a swordsman at all." Virgo froze for a moment and said, "Ah yes. Where is my bamboo?" "You just took it to the skewers," Senor said again. Listening to this weird conversation, Albia didn't know what to say. Can this really win? She looked at Doflamingo suspiciously and said, "Aren't you going to make a move?" Doflamingo glanced at Albia and said, "Stupid woman, don't underestimate my subordinates, it was just a test. If Beckman, Helding, Diamante, Lily, Virgo, Senor, Gladius and others make a move together, they still can't take down the tomb of Kotaku. This new world, it doesn't matter if you don't go." Beckman and the others ignored Katakuri's pretense, and the eyes of several people met for a moment, as if they were connected with each other. In the next second, Diamante took the lead and slashed at Katakuri with the long knife in his hand. Katakuri moved forward with the trident in his hand, accurately blocking Diamante's long knife, and at this moment, Diamante roared, "Melting slash." A scorching heat erupted instantly from Diamante's long knife, and Katakuri felt the sting from the trident almost at the same time. That's right, in just a split second, Katakuri's trident was burned. And this scene also made Katakuri furious, and asked, "You just ate the hot fruit that should have belonged to Owen." No one answered him, and an arc flickered past Katakuri's side. Under Katakuri's rage, he still had the vision to foresee the future, as if he had judged something at the first time, and kicked armament hockey with his long legs. Beckman's figure also happened to appear within the range of Katakuri's kick at this time. With one kick, Beckman's figure suddenly exploded, but Katakuri frowned, thinking to himself, "Phantom." On the other hand, Beckman stood on Helding's shoulder, and said in a deep voice, "Sure enough, this guy can see the future. If there is no accident, it should be the awakening of observation hockey. It's a bit tricky." Katakuri's saucy maneuvers had already made Beckman suspicious, so the phantom just now was Beckman's temptation. Now he has confirmed that this guy Katakuri can really foresee the future. "What to do?" Helding asked in a deep voice. "Connect to my heart network," Beckman said softly, and then, at the end of his braid tied behind his head, a small ball formed by the convergence of electric arcs quickly appeared, hanging on the tail of the braid. This is the ability developed by the combination of Beckman's observation hockey and thunder fruit. It is equivalent to an internal local area network. People who enter this heart network can be said to be able to spiritually communicate. Katakuri also seemed to feel something. His brows were frowned, and the trident in his hand was tightened. His gaze kept scanning the crowd surrounding him. In the heart network, Beckman's thoughts said to everyone, "That guy may be able to foresee the future, but his eyes can see, but his body may not be able to fully follow. Next, let him see what is called top tacit understanding." At this time, the market is already deserted. Katakuri's observation hockey turned to ultimate, standing motionless in the field, as if waiting for Beckman and others to make a move. Beckman stood on Helding's shoulders, examining Katakuri from top to bottom, but did not make a move first. In the distance, outside the battle circle, Doflamingo shook the empty bottle in his hand, and said to Albia, "Hey, go to that booth for me and get a bottle of camel milk beer." Albia, seeing that she was not moving, Doflamingo urged, "What are you doing here? Hurry up." Albia gritted her teeth, and finally went to give it to Doflamingo. From the first meeting to now, this bastard has never failed to order her. Albia took out a bottle of camel milk beer from an unoccupied booth, and just as she was about to turn around, a gust of sea breeze blew from the port, rolled up the yellow sand on the ground, and swept across the area. At the booth, Albia couldn't help raising his hands to cover his eyes. It was also at this moment that Wang Xiao passed where everyone was. A gleam of lightning flashed in Beckman's eyes. In the next second, Lily Ernstmark took the lead. She stomped on her powerful long legs and smashed the ground. She held a long fork in her body and stabbed at Katakuri. Katakuri is still predicting with his observation haki. The trident slammed forward to block the long fork, and at the same time exerted force from the waist, taking advantage of the momentum and turning half a circle on the spot. At this moment, Virgo also joined the battle, with both fists wrapping armament haki flowing like a cloud, one left and one right, hitting Katakuri. Katakuri received the move with one hand, and precisely blocked Virgo's left fist with his wrist, then pressed his arm, elbowed across, just in time to block Virgo's right fist. At the same moment, after parrying Virgo's two heavy punches, Katakuri let go of the trident without hesitation, and let Lily put his instrument to sleep. The next moment, Senor appeared next to his arm, grabbed Katakuri's arm violently. But obviously, Katakuri's strength is stronger than Senor's. He pulled back, and directly used Senor as his own arm shield, blocking it in front of his chest. This moment happens to be Diamante's turn. The long knife in Diamante's hand was originally aimed at Katakuri's chest, but Katakuri dragged Senor to block it in front of his chest. Whether or not Katakuri can be injured by this knife is anyone's guess, but Senor will definitely be pierced. As a last resort, forcibly retracting the knife caused Diamante's movements to falter, and for someone like Katakuri who cheats, a setback is enough. Before Diamante could make a defense, Katakuri kicked Diamante's chest fiercely. Diamante was directly thrown out. But no one cared about him. The moment Diamante was bounced, Virgo had already put his palm on Katakuri's chest. Also at the same time, Senor, who was hanging on Katakuri's arm, exerted a sudden force, pulling Katakuri's arm downward, and the chest that was originally blocked by the arm exposed to Virgo's attack. This time, Katakuri did not have time to dodge, and he was slapped on the chest by Virgo. But Virgo, who succeeded in the blow, did not show any complacency on his face, but said in a deep voice, "No attack." That's right. Virgo punched Katakuri's chest with his palm. It looked very cruel, but in fact, Katakuri was elementalized in advance. He manipulated the nuo fruit and changed his body structure. Virgo's attack was actually a failure. Enough is enough. As long as the speed is fast enough and the frequency is high enough, it is really impossible for him to completely evade our offensive, Beckman said without hesitation. So far, it's still a trial. A smile flashed in Doflamingo's eyes in the distance. Don't look at Katakuri, who seems to be calm, fighting with so many cadres of the Donquixote family. He has not been injured until now. It seems to have an advantage. But in the eyes of Doflamingo, from the very beginning, Katakuri has no advantage. The battle is to see through the performance, to see this week. On the surface, Katakuri is very calm, but in fact, so far, Katakuri has not been able to launch an effective counterattack. At most it kicked Diamante away. And his proud ability can't be exported at all. It can only be used as elementalization. Why? Because the rhythm of Beckman and others is so fast that Katakuri has reached the limit of pressure by foreseeing the future to dodge and defend. He has no way to make a more effective counterattack to break the current situation. And no matter how long he can sustain the foreseeable future, there is an inevitable truth in battle. That is, if you defend for a long time, you will lose. Apparently, Beckman was calculating Katakuri's limit. As soon as Beckman's voice fell, the strong thunder and lightning elements on his body began to gather, like armor, attached to the outside of his body surface. Not only that, but at this time Beckman's pupils were completely replaced by the constantly overflowing thunder elements. The muscles on his body surged slowly, as if he was accumulating some powerful strength. In fact, it does. A flash of lightning flashed, and Katakuri raised a fist above his neck, and then Beckman slammed his foot, and a hanging chop hung on Katakuri's arm. The blow didn't seem to have any effect, but it didn't matter. Beckman didn't seem to care. Almost the moment he touched Katakuri's arm, another flash of lightning flashed, and Beckman's figure disappeared again. No, it should be said to be flashing. Katakuri still reacted quickly, leaping forward, dodging Beckman's kick from behind. Next, I saw Beckman's speed getting faster and faster, almost dazzling. He kept flashing beside Katakuri. Every punch, every kick was solid and powerful. Katakuri also maintains excellent reaction speed in this kind of close combat, and can always block Beckman's offensive with precise posture. But anyone with a discerning eye can see that Beckman's speed is getting faster and faster, and sweat has started to flow from Katakuri's forehead, and his eyes are no longer as sharp as before. His breath is in disorder. The next moment, Beckman slammed Katakuri's arm, And when Katakuri wanted to predict, Beckman exploded again. This time, the blocked fist did not evacuate quickly, but an extremely dazzling thunder burst out again. Thunderstorm. Beckman growled. This time, it's no longer fist strength, but Thunderfruit's energy is exploding. In an instant, Katakuri was enveloped by the turbulent lightning, and that tall figure was knocked into the air. This is the first time that Katakuri turned on observation haki in this battle, but was knocked into the air for the first time. At the moment when Katakuri was knocked into the air, Hayarden seemed to hear something, opened his arms suddenly, and then slapped forward swiftly. The giant figure, wrapped in a strong wind, blew towards Kata. Great wind burst. Helding roared. Katakuri's surroundings were instantly enveloped by the explosion, and the black smoke completely obscured his vision. Immediately afterwards, Katakuri endured the severe pain in his body, as if seeing something again. With armament haki on his arm, he threw 10 smokes into the black gunpowder smoke. Katakuri punched Diamante's fiery sword open again. The figure landed on the ground, and the lightning-flashing figure rushed out of the gunpowder smoke. Katakuri was about to raise his hand to respond, but found pain in his feet. His tall body was lifted by someone. Because the gunpowder smoke is too thick, so you only saw Diamante's long knife, but didn't notice Lily under her feet. There was a smile on the corner of Beckman's mouth, and then suddenly, one punch hit Katakuri in the heart. This time, Katakuri failed to respond at all. Beckman punched him in the heart, and then the surging thunder element pierced Katakuri's chest in an instant, as if piercing through his heart. A beam of flickering energy burst out from behind him. Cough. Katakuri spat out a mouthful of old blood. I know you saw it, but you can't hide. Beckman mocked with a smile on his lips. While being pierced by this blow, Lily's figure grew rapidly. She wrapped her arms around Katakuri's waist, and fell backwards. With a bang, Katakuri was thrown to the ground. 2 consecutive heavy blows would be a serious injury to an ordinary person, but Katakuri's physical fitness is extremely strong, and after being knocked down, he struggled fiercely. However, Lily is a giant and her strength is still extremely strong. She just locked Katakuri's waist and elbowed Katakuri's abdomen, but she didn't let go. At this moment, Doflamingo, who was squatting in the distance, suddenly had an extremely terrifying aura. It was the Conqueror's haki that ran over Kata, who was still struggling. The moment Katakuri was run over by this momentum, his expression froze. Because of his observation haki, the ability to foresee the future was killed by this Conqueror's. Maybe you can struggle a few more times, but it's unnecessary. You were passive from the beginning to the end of Katakuri's battle, so you didn't miss it? Doflamingo said while drinking milk beer. From the point of view of strength itself, Katakuri is not the opponent of this group of people. He is relying entirely on observation haki's foreseeing the future to support him. Now Doflamingo's Conquerors has directly killed this power to foresee the future, and Katakuri's chances of winning have completely disappeared. Senor immediately took out the seastone shackles and quickly locked them on Katakuri's wrists. At this point, Tien Taku rolled over. In the cabin, Doflamingo was sitting on the sofa, listening to the person opposite. The person who was speaking opposite at this time was Nicole Albia. No matter what kind of thoughts and decisions you made, I still thank you very much, Doflamingo. Thank you for saving me from Katakuri. Albia said to Doflamingo very seriously. He bowed and said. Doflamingo seems to be obsessed with coffee recently, or maybe it's because the old king of Drum Kingdom drinks really good quality coffee, so that even the former celestial dragon's Doflamingo loves it. When I left the magnetic Drum Kingdom, I let him go. Now Doflamingo, who was listening to Albia's thanks, was holding a delicate coffee cup in his hand, and he was pinching a small coffee spoon in his hand, stirring it at a constant speed. Fufurfur, we are destined to meet each other, so you are welcome. Doflamingo replied calmly. Albia nodded first, then hesitated for a moment, and said, according to what I know, are you a pirate now? Oh. Doflamingo responded, and then said, as a scholar, you should also pay attention to current affairs, right? The execution of One Piece Roger not only failed to achieve the goals of the world government and marine, but also it has opened up a new era, and I will call this era the Great Pirate Era. In my opinion, pirates are the outlet and mainstream of this era. The reason why you went to sea to become a pirate is really unique. Albia complained softly. Others go to be pirates for some reason such as treasure, plunder, etc. This guy said that pirates are the outlet of the times, and it looks like they are here for employment. Doflamingo pressed the coffee cup to his lips, took a sip, and did not respond. And Albia took a deep breath and said, as a thank you for saving me this time, I will also tell you some information and intelligence about pirates that I know. All ears. Doflamingo replied calmly. The raftel discovered by One Piece Roger has always existed, but because of some unknown reasons, it was hidden in the dust of history by the government of the world. And according to rumors, there is a big secret treasure of the Roger pirates hidden in raftel now. If you want to get this big secret treasure, you must first collect 4 crimson historical texts, each of which is recorded in a part of raftel. This is the only way I have found so far to board raftel, and according to speculation, the Roger pirates also found raftel in this way. Albia said quickly. Although what she said was all the information that Doflamingo knew, but when you think about it carefully, this information is indeed very precious. In the future, 99% of the pirates who say they want to fight for hegemony in the sea will not know such a confidential matter. There are those who stand at the top and know some. Therefore, Doflamingo could still feel Albia's sincerity, nodded at her with a smile and said, I see, I've been taught. Albia paused for a moment, took a breath and continued. According to our Ohara investigation, the historical text should have been handed down by Wano-kuni of the New World more than 800 years ago. We haven't studied the specifics yet. Clearly, based on my current conjectures, perhaps Wano-kuni should have a signpost history text. Then, she looked at Doflamingo and said seriously, that was my speculation just now, now it's accurate information. Have you heard of the furry principality in the Elephant Master? Doflamingo raised his brows and said, of course. The most famous mobile island in the New World is said to be a country built on the back of a giant elephant that can walk in the deep sea. Home of the fur tribe. That's right, it's good that you've heard of it. Albia responded, and said, after you left Ohara, I led a team to New World to search for the text of history, and luckily met the owner of the elephant. Go to the furry principality, and in the furry principality, there is a huge ancient tree shaped like a whale, and one of the 4 historical texts of road signs is in this tree. Speaking of this, Albia seemed to have relieved a heavy burden, and said with a sigh of relief, this is what I can repay you. Doflamingo. Although it is the same as before, it is still information that Doflamingo already knew. But, just because Doflamingo knew its authenticity, Albia's sincerity became more apparent. Doflamingo took a sip of coffee, then put the empty cup on the table, looked at Albia and said, you have changed a lot since the last time we met, especially in terms of attitude. That's because when I was in Ohara, my impression of you was, you were a bastard who forcibly broke into Ohara and threatened us. Albia smiled, and then said, but in the future, you really keeping your promise and not doing anything to endanger Ohara. It makes me think that you are at least a credible bastard. Now you have stopped threatening Ohara and saved my life at the same time. If I still have the previous attitude, wouldn't it appear that I am too ungrateful? Fur. Doflamingo smiled, didn't delve deeper into this issue, and said, I have accepted the information just now. It is very important to our Donquixote family, because of your attitude for the sake. If you need any help in the future, you can contact me. Do you have my phone bug signal? Yes. Albia responded immediately. The two chatted a few more miscellaneous things, and then talked about the situation of Alabasta. We came to Alabasta this time, in fact, to find the historical text here. According to some previous summaries, there should be some here. But His Majesty Cobra is a stubborn monarch. Albia said helplessly. Cobra may be stubborn, but he is not an idiot. A group of guys with unknown origins want to get the news of the historical text from him. You are too whimsical. Maybe you report it to Ohara name. He will give you a satisfactory explanation. Doflamingo joked. Absolutely not. Things about the historical text must be kept absolutely confidential. Every time we set sail, we will erase all traces of ourselves in Ohara. Our team of scholars will never carry any information related to Ohara. Items, even the supplies in West Blue, even cost a lot of money, buying special products from other sea areas from the black market to disguise. Albia said immediately. It can be said that even if these scholars were arrested, as long as they did not confess themselves, the world government would hardly be able to find any clues related to Ohara from them. After hearing this, Doflamingo also admired this group of scholars. In terms of professionalism in courting death, they are indeed very professional. I also don't know how the matter of Ohara was investigated later. The guy named Spandine in the CP agency really has something. After thinking about it, Doflamingo said, Alabasta does have a historical text. The Nafarutali family is the descendant of the 20 kings of that year. More than 800 years ago, there were many changes. There are a lot of mysteries involved in this, so I won't go into details. In short, they do have the historical text in their hands. Hearing this, Albia became excited and said, do you know where it is? If you know, please tell me, and I will definitely repay you. Doflamingo rolled his eyes and said, what do you have in return? But after a pause, he continued. Do you know why studying ancient texts and trying to interpret historical texts will be defined as terrorist acts by the world government? One of the most serious crimes? According to our current investigation, it should be that there are some bad things about the world government hidden in it. Albia explained. Needless to say this, judging from the explanation of the Dragon Code, it is rumored that the 3 ancient weapons capable of destroying the world are recorded in the historical text. The ancient weapon revived in history, thus triggering a worldwide crisis, so the code strictly prohibits anyone from researching it, and once it is discovered, it will be executed immediately. Do you understand? Doflamingo looked at Albia and said. Albia is not an idiot either, so he quickly reacted and said, you suddenly mentioned this because you want to say that the historical text of Alabasta is related to ancient weapon? That's right, ancient weapona Plutona Pluto. The records related to it are in the historical text of Alabasta. Other than that, there is no extra information, so if you O'Hara are not interested in ancient weapon, just stop investigating Alabasta, Doflamingo said. Albia was silent for a moment, nodded and said, I see, thank you, Doflamingo. But soon, Albia asked doubtfully again, speaking of which, how do you know these secrets? As I said just now, Nefertiti is the descendant of 20 kings. Doflamingo raised his chin and smiled. So? Albia still looked at Doflamingo with some puzzlement. So, who is Don Quixote's descendant? Doflamingo asked with a smile. Don Quixote. Albia was stunned for a moment and said, are you celestial dragons? Originally. I thought you knew it a long time ago. After all, Dr. Clover seems to have seen it long ago. Doflamingo shrugged. At this moment, Virgo knocked on the door, and then walked in and said, Dover, the supplies for the voyage are all ready. Okay. Doflamingo responded, then looked at Albia and said, we are leaving Alabasta, how about you? Are you with us? No, my team is still in Alabasta, and I'm going to join them. Since the main text of Alabasta's history is ancient weapon, then we really should look for it in a different direction. Albia shook his head and said. Okay. Then I won't keep you any longer. Doflamingo stood up and said. Soon, Orbia disembarked, and Doflamingo left Alabasta. See Circle Calendar at the beginning of 1501, Doflamingo started from East Blue Log Town, and it took more than half a year to arrive at the capital of 7 Waters again. I have nothing else to do when I come to the capital of 7 Waters, just pass by, visit Master Tom, and see how my boat is doing by the way. It is true that the current progress is relatively smooth, and the ships are also being built in an orderly manner. Master Tom looks a bit more robust, presumably because he has done a lot of physical labor recently? Do you want to recruit some Murloc partners? Master Tom asked Doflamingo with a towel wrapped around his head, his upper body naked, and a tool hammer in his hand, looking at Doflamingo with some surprise. This place is the largest shipyard in the capital of 7 Waters. Due to its huge scale, it is impossible for the Cervantes to be directly built and launched in a certain shipyard. It must be built module by module, and finally assembled together. Just now Master Tom was knocking on the crane in the factory, and after seeing Doflamingo, the group came down. That's right. Doflamingo bit a cigarette and said with a smile, most of my friends on this boat are capable people. Once there is a severe storm, it will be very dangerous. This is not the case. Seeing that we have arrived at the capital of 7 Waters, the next stop is Sabaody Archipelago. I am about to enter the New World, and you are not ignorant of the climate of the New World. That's right. From the point of view of the regular 7 routes, the capital of 7 Waters is indeed the last stop of the Sabaody Archipelago in the current route where Doflamingo is located. Normally, after the record pointer is fixed here, it should be a direct Sabaody Archipelago. As for the encounter of the Straw Hat Pirates in the original story, it was an accident. They went to Eni's lobby by sea train. After escaping from Eni's lobby, they did go to Sabaody Archipelago, but they got lost in the Devil's Triangle Sea area. I met Moria's big ship. If there is no such bells and whistles, leave from the capital of 7 Waters, and the next stop is Sabaody Archipelago. Master Tom still has a good impression of Doflamingo. This kid is polite and rich. Judging by the atmosphere when he gets along with his subordinates, the internal environment of the Don Quixote family should be very harmonious. If there are compatriots of your own who are willing to go out with Doflamingo, what's the point? Thinking of this, Master Tom nodded and said, then let me write you some letters of introduction. My younger brother is in the Fishmen Island, and I also have some friends. As the top shipbuilder, Although Master Tom is resident in the capital of Seven Waters, it does not mean that he has no influence on the Fishmen Island. On the contrary, the Fishmen Island respects him quite a bit. He is in the Fishmen Island, belonged to the upper class. Then thank you, Master Tom. Doflamingo said happily upon hearing this. You don't have to thank me, as long as you treat my compatriots equally. When Master Tom mentioned this, he was still a little emotional. Oh. As we all know, I am a racial egalitarian, so don't worry, Master. Doflamingo assured immediately. At this time, in North Blue Frevens, Pika, who happened to be inspecting the work here, sneezed suddenly, but he didn't pay much attention to it. After turning around a few times, he waved the whip in his hand and slapped a BL*CKM*N who was carrying platinum lead, and cursed, "You BL*CKM*N, don't try to be lazy." In the capital of Seven Waters, Master Tom felt that Doflamingo was trustworthy, so he didn't say anything more, and soon wrote some letters of introduction to Doflamingo. Doflamingo took a look and found that besides the letter to his younger brother, Dan, there was also a letter to Neptune of Dragon Palace City, and looking back, there was also a letter to Faye, the boss of Murloc Street. Share Tigers. The gold content was really high, and Doran Mingo immediately thanked Master Tom again. Is there enough money for shipbuilding? Doflamingo asked again. Master Tom immediately waved his hand and said, it's still a while, but you have to prepare for the next stage of Bailey. Don't worry, our Donquixote family has already prepared the next phase of 10 billion Baileys, Doflamingo said. Afterwards, I didn't talk about too many things. Master Tom still has to devote himself to intense work. And Doflamingo also found out that at this moment, Master Tom has started to follow two little ghosts, and it should be Ace Bagu and Frankie. Doflamingo didn't stay in the capital of Seven Waters for too long, and soon left here. But as soon as the ship left the port of the capital of Seven Waters, Doflamingo saw a newsbird flying towards him. Beckoning, Newsbird quickly landed on Doflamingo's side, skillfully accepted Bailey, and threw a newspaper to Doflamingo. Leaning on the mast, the first time he opened the newspaper, Doflamingo frowned and said with a convincing smile, "Is Furofera finally going to land? The 7 warlords of the sea plan." That's right, the newspapers have already begun to build momentum, saying that after many consultations and discussions within the world government, in order to deal with the increasingly turbulent sea, the world government has a plan to recruit some big pirates. The specific details of the recruitment are not clearly stated, but in general, after the recruitment, these pirates should no longer violate the law and discipline, which is in line with the statement of recruitment. Like Marine, Donati look at the appearance of being at odds with pirates, but every year, a large number of pirates will be recruited. Of course, unlike 7 warlords of the sea, Marine is directly incorporating it into a marine combat sequence, followed by continuous education and rectification, belongs to the kind of pollution-free. In the original story, after 20 years, Marine still has this tradition. In fact, Kebi can be regarded as this type of recruitment, but the most typical one is the hypnosis teacher Zan, who looks like Jackson. Gao. This guy was originally a pirate, and later went to the Marine with Hina. Nowadays, people in the world still don't understand how weird this so-called recruitment is. If they can recruit vicious pirates as honest and responsible people, then there is no problem, right? As everyone knows, after the big pirates joined the 7 warlords of the sea, they really did not break the law. Because all the actions they did afterwards were legally legal. Looting in a reasonable and legal way, killing your whole family in a reasonable and legal way, alas, IDS just recruiting security. The newspaper also told a lot of key information, such as confirming that the plan is called 7 Warlords of the Sea Plan, and that Naval Headquarters has passed the letter of intent on 7 Warlords of the Sea, and will participate in 7 Warlords of the Sea in the optional inspection system. It can be said that after the end of this wave of campaigning, 7 Warlords of the Sea will come to the fore very soon. After all, judging from the current confidence, the biggest resistance, Naval Headquarters has been settled. It can also be felt from this that the world government's handling of Naval Headquarters is still very important. Even if all the Marines are not happy in the Marine Senior Management objects, but I want you to pass, you can still pass. It can be seen that the world is the government's control over Marine is still very strong. And this kind of control has nothing to do with force. It is nothing more than 2 aspects. One is the system shaping for more than 800 years, so that Marine has become accustomed to this mode of operation, but this is not the most important thing, the main thing is money. The world government has always exercised military spending control on Marine. Every year, if Marine wants to maintain its operation, it needs a large amount of funds allocated by the world government. Otherwise, who will fight for you without money? You can't even afford the pension. Everyone just relying on the word justice can fill one's stomach. So Doflamingo is very clear that he wants to make a drastic change in Marine, so as to turn his face against those guys on Mariejois. First of all, you have to be rich, you have to be able to support a huge Marine. At least let Marine only when they have no worries for the future in a few years can they have the confidence to sing against the world's government. Otherwise, it is useless to say more. After reading the news of 7 warlords of the sea, I turned back and found that the matter was related to me. After a long investigation, News of the World confirmed that the star Charlotte Katakuri of the New World Big Mom Pirates has disappeared mysteriously. The Big Mom Pirates have been investigating this matter for several months. At present, the biggest suspect is Donquixote Doflamingo, who is called Heavenly Yaksha, with a bounty of 232 million pele. And Charlotte Linlin also spoke in New World, saying that this incident will definitely make Doflamingo, an ignorant bastard, give her 10 explanations. Originally, this is not something worth mentioning. After all, there are not too many stunned youths who challenge the head pirates in New World every year. However, Doflamingo is a more representative pirate, and the News of the World currently calls him the leader of the era of great pirates. On the one hand, it is because Doflamingo dared to fight fiercely with Admiral of Naval Headquarters before his debut, and he was not arrested. The pirates on the Grand Line are also the ones with the highest rewards among this group of pirates. Therefore, in the eyes of the world, Doflamingo belongs to the leader of the new generation of pirates. Now, he is about to break into the New World and clash with those veteran pirates. Many people are looking forward to this scene. Fooferfer, Morgans, is really a guy who likes to watch the show. Doflamingo joked without any pressure. Naval Headquarters Marineford. In Sengoku Admiral's office, there was nothing to do today, so a few bigwigs got together to chat, brag and so on. This is also the daily life of the Marine bosses. Sengoku sat on the sofa holding a teacup and asked, "That bastard Garp, doesn't he mean to come back?" "Oh." Zephyr bit his cigar, and replied, "He's in South Blue. He said he wasn't on vacation, but was investigating and hunting for traces of Roger." As soon as Zephyr's words fell, Sengoku's face trembled and said, "Does he believe what he said?" But it's clear that Sengoku doesn't intend to meddle in his own business. "Teacher Zephyr, if you have asthma, don't smoke cigars." The door was pushed open, and then Corazon came in, stepped forward and snuffed out Zephyr's cigar. Zephyr said helplessly, "Life is just such a little hobby, and it has to be hindered by you people. You need to be healthy." Corazon joked with a smile, then looked at the crowd and said, "I just received a super secret." "Oh." Sengoku's face darkened, and he asked seriously, "Did something serious happen? Xiaohei, hasn't your intelligence department received any news?" Seeing Sengoku being so serious, Corazon quickly said, "No, it's another type of super secret." Senior Staff Officer Suru was also very interested and asked, "How do you say?" "Mr. Garp has confirmed that guy, Dorag, has indeed found a girlfriend in South Blue," Corazon said mysteriously. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone had expressions of surprise on their faces and asked, "Really?" "That's right. And Dorag is currently in South Blue, and he met with Mr. Garp not long ago, and talked about this matter. Mr. Garp should not meddle in his private affairs." Corazon broke the news. "Ha ha 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 ha." Sengoku laughed and said, "That guy Dorag. Is it time to talk about marriage too?" After laughing, several people chatted about other things. "By the way, is there any movement on Rosinante's side?" Translate suddenly asked. As soon as his words fell, Sengoku's expression froze for a moment, then he frowned and said, "No news." At this time, General Staff Suru said, "Don't worry, no news is good news. Our intelligence department is also paying close attention to that guy Doflamingo. Doflamingo's level is different now. He belongs to the leader of the new generation of pirates, and Marine's importance to him has also risen to a higher level. Of course, because of Rosinante and Sengoku Admiral, the Donquixote family itself is the focus of Marine. Any intel on them lately? Sengoku asked. Does the conflict between the Big Mom pirates count? Although it seems that the Big Mom pirates haven't investigated clearly yet, but our intelligence department has actually completed the investigation. Charlotte Katakuri and Doflamingo met in Alabasta's rapeseed port, and then defeated and captured by the Donquixote family, Suru said. It can be seen that although the Big Mom pirate group has strong intelligence in the pirate industry, it is still far behind Marine's regular intelligence agency. Staff Officer Suru has made a thorough investigation, but Charlotte Linlin is still guessing and doubting. So, Doflamingo is really going to fight the big Moor pirates? Corazon asked curiously. 9 times out of 10, judging from the current situation, Doflamingo is definitely going to enter the New World, but it's a bit strange to say. He started from East Blue on this journey. So far, he has not been on the Grand Line during his journey. He hasn't caused any turmoil. His pirate style seems to be relatively moderate, Chief Staff Officer Suru said. For this situation, the Marine bosses are not very surprised, because this situation is not an exception. Pirates are indeed divided into many styles in the eyes of Marine. Kaido, Charlotte Linlin, Silver Axe, Shiki, etc. belong to that kind of brutal pirates. Even if they don't have some purpose, they will continue to do evil, looting towns and massacring islands when they have nothing to do. There is no need to look for reasons. Even if you drink too much and eat enough, you can do such a thing. And there are big pirates like Doflamingo, Roger in the past, and Whitebeard in the present. They don't go to loot towns and slaughter islands when it's not necessary. But in the end it is the pirates. Sometimes they provoke them, so it's hard to say. Doflamingo once fought with Sengoku and slaughtered the entire Cervantes. Roger, because someone scolded his companions, he gave up a whole country. Destroyed. It is not unheard of for Whitebeard to sink the island in a rage because his son was injured. But overall, Marine still has a better impression of the gentle pirates. Listening to Suru's words, Sengoku said calmly, "Don't let your guard down on this guy just because he is harmless." But after a short pause, Sengoku said again, "If you want to gain a firm foothold in the New World, you have to gain prestige." Now it seems that Doflamingo chose the Big Mom pirates. That should be the case, Chief Staff Officer Suru said. Zephyr took a sip of tea, and then said, "It's not a bad thing to let someone like him enter New World to stir up trouble. Anyway, dogs eat dogs." For Marine, it must be a good thing if the Donquixote family and the Big Mom pirates fight to the death. Anyway, the pirates are the ones who win or lose. Actually, it's just right. We have always been vague about the situation of the Donquixote family cadres. Once the Donquixote family and the Big Mom pirates go to war, we can also collect a lot of information from it, and further confirm the overall level of the Donquixote family. Threat degree. Suru's chief staff analyzed. "I don't know anything else, but that Ben Beckman, once he grows up in the future, it will definitely be a tricky role," Corazon said suddenly. Thunderfruit. Sengoku stroked his braided beard and murmured. "It's really troublesome. Doflamingo's potential is unquestionable. Sengoku is sure that this guy will become one of the monsters in the sea in a few years, and Thunderfruit's words. Obviously, this ability known as invincible, at least it can also create a master at the level of Marine Admiral. Speaking of which, do you think Doflamingo is suitable to become 7 warlords of the sea?" Corazon asked suddenly as if he remembered something. As soon as he said this, the others were all stunned. Sengoku frowned, and began to think about the gains and losses in it. After thinking for a while, Chief Staff Officer Suru said, "Actually, it's not impossible, right? After becoming the 7 warlords of the sea, whether it is robbery or other crimes, it will be legalized, so when we select the 7 warlords of the sea, we must also focus on this point, try our best. Choose those pirates who are milder, at least from this point of view, the Doflamingo incident is more appropriate," Staff Officer Saruki said. Looking at the 7 warlords of the sea sequence, if there is no special situation, Marine has always been using this condition as a benchmark, that is, it is best to choose a moderate pirate. For example, Crocodile, although he made quite a fuss in New World, Crocodile spends most of his time challenging established strong players. For weak players, he looks down on them, disdains them, and is too lazy to deal with them. Apart from the necessary expenses, Crocodile is basically not guilty. Until he went to Alabasta as 7 warlords of the sea for his own ambition and purpose, and started to create a heavenly group. Jinbei, needless to say, is simply the moderate among the moderates. You don't even need to define it as a pirate. Gecko Moria was very fierce at the beginning, but after being crushed by Kaido, the whole person lay flat. Marine also took a fancy to him and chose him as 7 warlords of the sea. Facts have proved that it is really the right choice. Moria once became the benchmark in 7 warlords of the sea. Marine really liked him. This guy even disappeared in the sea for more than 10 years. Except for those unlucky ones who strayed into the sea area of the Devil's Triangle, he was harmless. Extraordinary, it's outrageous. Bartholomew Kuma is the same. In Marine's view, he is also a no-pollution pirate. Partnership. Dracule Mihawk is also the same reason. At the beginning when he was pursuing the goal of no one swordsman, Mihawk was still very destructive. This is also the main reason why he was defined as a pirate, but after Mihawk became the #1 swordsman, he gradually became Moria, like a dead otaku, playing with monkeys on Krakan Island, and the harm is extremely low. That is to say, occasionally when I am bored, I go to sea to bully rookies and so on. Anyway, basically after he stopped challenging others, he didn't make any big troubles anymore. And Boa Hancock is not far behind. Even thinking about it carefully, Hancock can be regarded as the most restless pirate in this batch of 7 warlords of the sea. Because of Amazon Lily's lack of supplies, her plundering frequency, far surpassing the rest of the 7 warlords of the sea. In the case of Doflamingo, a businessman is more of a businessman who is running his own network, and most of the people who suffer are Dressrosa's unlucky ones. From a macro perspective, the harm is relatively safe. It can be seen that as long as Marine has the ability to stop those pirates who are cruel and tyrannical, want to massacre islands at every turn, commit crimes, and cause grievances, Marine will definitely do his best to prevent him from becoming 7 warlords of the sea. While Sengoku was thinking about this, Chief Staff Officer Suru's phone rang suddenly. The Chief Staff Officer picked up the phone and asked, "What's the matter?" The Chief Staff Officer, Sabaody Archipelago witnessed information, Heavenly Yaksha Donquixote Doflamingo and members of the Donquixote family have boarded the illegal zone. A Marine intelligence agent quickly reported. Chief Staff Officer Suru frowned, and then said, "Understood, under the condition of ensuring safety, pay attention to him as much as possible." "Yes, I understand," the Marine intelligence officer responded. After hanging up the phone, Chief Staff Officer Suru looked at Sengoku and said, "Doflamingo is now in Sabaody Archipelago, and it only takes more than an hour's flight to go there. In the next step, he must pass the Fishmen Island and enter the New World. And whether it is the Fishmen Island or the New World, the future opportunities are not as close as they are now. Sengoku, do you need to catch him?" After hearing this, Zephyr said softly, "Don't forget Mariejois." Sengoku was silent for a moment, stroked his braids and said, "Forget it, the risk is too great. The Sabaody Archipelago is the back garden of the Celestial Dragons. If the Celestial Dragons are there, Doflamingo will kill. It was hard for us to end. Sabaody Archipelago is the directly administered island of Celestial Dragons. The Celestial Dragons on Mariejois are often idle and bored. They come to Sabaody Archipelago to have fun, such as participating in auctions, such as robbing women in the street, such as bullying civilians and so on. There are actually many other islands directly under the central government like this. Back then, the Canyon of the Gods, the island directly under the jurisdiction of the Celestial Dragons, seemed to be managed by the Figalando family. This guy Doflamingo has the experience of slaughtering the island, and Sengoku has personally experienced it. His torrent of blood belongs to the type that can't be controlled, so if there are Celestial Dragons on the island, it will be troublesome big. In addition, Sengoku is also considering Kuzan's question about Doflamingo and 7 warlords of the sea before, but he hasn't considered it clearly yet. But from Xiaohei's point of view, it is true. Doflamingo belongs to the person who is suitable for the position of 7 warlords of the sea. From the perspective of Marine's interests, Doflamingo has a lot of business in the dark world, and Marine also has a lot of places to use him. If he becomes 7 warlords of the sea, it seems that it is not without benefits. In the end, it was selfishness. Sengoku felt that if Doflamingo became 7 warlords of the sea, wouldn't Rosinante's safety be guaranteed? After all, everyone will be in the same camp at that time, and they will all be under the control of the world government. If Rosinante really shows his chicken feet, then there is some room for mediation, right? Of course, this is an advantage. The downside is also obvious. Sengoku is very clear that with Doflamingo's cunning and ambition, once he can win the identity of 7 warlords of the sea and become a legal pirate, black and white can take all. This Donquixote family will inevitably enter the express train of rapid development road. Whether tigers will be raised in the future, no one can say for sure. Therefore, Sengoku is just thinking about it, and has not been able to come up with the answer in his heart. Meanwhile, in lawless territory in the Sabaody Archipelago, Doflamingo is looking at the scenery in the harbor. What's the matter? This is A. Beckman looked at his slightly melancholy back, and stepped forward to ask. Doflamingo said with emotion, "After so many years have passed, I still vaguely remember that when I was young, I used to come here to play. I ran in the sunset, which was my near of. You run in the sunset?" Beckman said with disbelief on his face, "You're no different than a slave running in the sunset." Fufurfurfurafurfur means only one meaning. Doflamingo laughed and said. Virgo also came over at this time, and said, Young master, next, shall we enter the new world via Mariejois, or enter the new world from the Fishman Island? If you want to leave Mariejois, you have to rely on your relationship. Unlike before, Doflamingo was not a pirate when he dangled from Mariejois last time. Now he can't leave blatantly. Doflamingo said without hesitation. I have Master Tom's letter of introduction in my hand, so I must go to the Fishman Island. Let's go to the Fishman Island, not to mention, don't you want to see the mermaid? Are they? Not interested. Virgo responded immediately. He is not very attractive. But Beckman on the side swallowed his saliva at this time. 5 years. What 5 years? Virgo looked at Beckman strangely and asked. It's been 5 years since I knew that there really are mermaids in this world, Virgo. Beckman said, pressing on Virgo's shoulder. Virgo. 5 years. Do you know how I have lived these 5 years? Do you know? Beckman shouted to Virgo with bright eyes. I will go to the Fishman Island, and Whitebeard can't stop it. I said it. Virgo looked at Beckman, who was a little nervous at this time, and quickly spoke to appease him. Go, definitely go. Don't be so excited. Let's go now, Beckman said through gritted teeth. I can't go, Virgo said in a very embarrassed way. Why? Beckman asked with a look of despair and disbelief. The Fishman Island is under 10,000 meters in the deep sea. As long as the ship passes by, it must be coated. Otherwise, how can it dive into the sea? So our current priority is to find a coater to coat our ships. This must be found if the workmanship is good, otherwise, if our coating is broken in the sea, we will really die without a place to die. Virgo explained. It's not that Beckman doesn't know these things, it's just that he was dazzled by the mermaid just now and forgot for a while. Now he came back to his senses and said calmly, yes, we can't be careless about this matter. We have to find someone inquire about the powerful film coater on the island. Just at this moment, Doflamingo, who had recovered from childhood memories, interrupted. The coater of Sabaody archipelago, I know a very good guy. Just so we can go find him. If you want to say that the most famous craftsman in Sabaody archipelago, it must be Rayleigh, a coating artist. Do you have acquaintances here? Beckman was surprised at first, and then quickly said, yes, after all, you are celestial dragons. Original celestial dragons, Doflamingo emphasized. Not too bad, Beckman said perfunctorily. There is no need for everyone to go together, like Helding and the others. They are also very interested in Sabaody archipelago, so Doflamingo immediately said loudly. Okay brothers, all eyes are on me, look at me, I declare that it is not important. After Helding and others approached, Doflamingo said, our ship is big, and it may take several days to coat it, so let's move about on our own, let's disband, and I will notify you to assemble when the ship is settled. Sabaody archipelago is still a very interesting place, everyone eats and has fun. Speaking of which, my lord, will there be celestial dragons appearing on the island? Helding frowned and asked. Occasionally, Doflamingo responded. Helding heard the words and said, the celestial dragons seem to like to capture us giants as slaves. If this happens, shall we? Doflamingo grinned and said, Heyrden, if this kind of situation really happens, if anyone wants to arrest you, you can go ahead and kill me. Doflamingo doesn't care about these low-level sand sculptures of celestial dragons. Doflamingo won't be used to them if this kind of thing happens. Who the hell isn't the 10 masters? What's more, he is still a pirate now, so it is even more impossible to get used to celestial dragons. As for whether this will have any impact, the answer is yes, but Doflamingo is confident that he can hold it. After hearing his young master's affirmative answer, Hire put on a smile on his face and said, we can rest assured. Soon, the members of the Donquixote family disbanded, and each of them could go to Sabaody archipelago to play around. With Doflamingo, there is only Gladius, the clingy ghost, and Beckman and Virgo. Gladius just wanted to be by the young master's side, on the saddle and on the horse. Doflamingo was no longer surprised, but he asked curiously, Virgo, don't you go to eat local specialties? And Beckman, what are you doing with me? Virgo said calmly, it's not time to fly yet. Beckman lit a cigarette and said softly, the matter of going to the Fishman Island is very important to me, so I want to go with you to see if the coder you are looking for is reliable. Very good, very strong reason. Just like that, Doflamingo didn't ask any more questions, and led the three of them towards the depths of the illegal zone. On the 13th island of Sabaody archipelago, on Xiaopobao, there is a tavern that looks lonely. The name of this tavern is also very arrogant, it is called, Shaki's Ripped Off Tavern. This name is so arrogant. Will there be any guests going in? Beckman looked at the name of the tavern and couldn't help asking in surprise. I heard that because the proprietress is very beautiful, there are quite a few guests here, Doflamingo replied. However, from his aesthetic point of view, Mrs. Shao-Chi is not particularly beautiful, but she does have a good temperament. Are you beautiful? Beckman's eyes lit up, and he was about to say something when the door of the tavern opened. Then a slim woman with short hair came out from inside. The woman still had a cigarette in her mouth, and some blood stained her cheeks. Afterwards, she dragged out 2 guys who had been beaten out of human shape from the tavern, and threw them into the river outside. After finishing all this, the woman seemed to see Doflamingo and the others, and waved to them with a bright face. Hey, some handsome boys, do you want to come in for a drink? Beckman looked at the corpse being washed by the water. The corner of his mouth twitched and said, to be honest, I prefer the kind of gentle and considerate. Madame Shao-Chi should be very gentle and considerate. Doflamingo muttered softly, and then said with a big smile, Madame Shaw is kindly inviting, so let's have a few drinks. After speaking, Doflamingo took the lead and walked over there. Gladius was fearless, and followed Doflamingo in a few steps. Virgo naturally had no objection, but Beckman hesitated for a moment, but still followed. The tavern is not very big. There is a bar counter at the entrance, and then inside, there is a long table that is not big or small. There are sofas around the long table, and the rest. Nothing. It can be said that this tavern is the largest, and it can only accommodate 20 people. As soon as you enter the door, you can still see a wine bottle that has just been broken on the ground. Mrs. Shao-Chi smiled a little embarrassedly and said, I'm sorry. The 2 guests just drank too much. The red wine was broken and spilled all over the floor. I'll clean it up right away. As a vampire capable, how could Doflamingo recognize blood by mistake? There is a pool of bright red stuff on the ground. Where is the red wine? It is obviously human blood. He moved his finger lightly, and then he saw the blood on the ground flow quickly, condensed into a small ball, and then flew towards the door, and landed in the river. Shao-Chi was a little surprised when he saw this, and raised his eyebrows twice, but he didn't say much, and quickly took out the broom to clean up the broken glass and so on. What do you want to drink? Shao-Chi entered the bar and asked. Doflamingo sat on the high stool, raised his hand and touched his chin, swept past the wine cabinet behind the bar and asked, do you have any recommendations? After a pause, he tapped Gladius on the head again and said, by the way, just give this kid a glass of juice. Young master. Gladius looked reluctant, but there was nothing he could do. If you come to Sabaody archipelago, of course you have to drink a cup of bubble tree tea. The proprietress Shao-Chi immediately recommended it. This bubble tree tea wine is a beverage made from the highest young leaves of the Alquaman mangrove and the local characteristic Picota fermented. It can only be produced here in Sabaody archipelago. Doflamingo looked at Beckman and Virgo. Beckman shook his head and said, I just want a glass of wheat beer. Virgo really wanted to taste the local specialties, so he said immediately, give me a cup. No problem. Mrs. Shao-Chi smiled and agreed, then looked at Doflamingo and asked, have you considered it? Oh. Doflamingo responded first, then suddenly grinned at the corner of his mouth, and asked with a smile, Furfur, the proprietress, I heard that Combelt's 9 Snake Islanda Amazona Lily is rich and there is a kind of fine wine called Snake Fairy. Do you know that there is it here? Mrs. Shao-Chi frowned and said, oh, it seems that this little brother has good taste. After a pause, Shao-Chi's wife said, the price of Snake Princess is very high. Let's have a drink. Doflamingo immediately affirmed. The proprietress Shao-Chi stopped talking when she saw this, and turned to bartending. On the other side, Beckman was also sitting on the high stool, leaning his arms on the bar counter, and asked a little curiously, in terms of 9 Snake Island, is that Amazon Lily the legendary daughter country? Doflamingo was lighting a cigarette, so he didn't answer, but Shao-Chi, the proprietress, changed her movements swiftly while bartending, and responded, that's right, it's the country of daughters. That's really the place I've been longing for in my dreams. Beckman responded excitedly, and then said, but I heard that Amazon Lily is very xenophobic, and it is the country of warriors, the country of pirates, few people can get close, right? How did the proprietress get into the wine from there? Shao-Chi's proprietress paused for a while, and did not speak. At this time, Doflamingo also lit a cigarette, shook his finger smartly, extinguished the match, and said, if you want to talk about why, it's because the proprietress is not an ordinary character. Eh? Beckman asked slightly curiously, you know again? Oh. Doflamingo responded, The former captain of the 9 Snake Pirates, the former emperor of Amazon Nanjing. Beckman. Hearing that, Beckman almost fell off the bar stool. Let's not talk about the identity of the emperor. Let's talk about the 9 Snake Pirates, which is a well-known pirate group in the pirate world, with a legendary nature. Generally, the history of pirate groups is not very long. Even the Roger Pirates, which were very popular for a while, are only one generation. And most pirate groups are like this. But the 9 Snake Pirates are different. They are a legendary pirate group that has been passed down from generation to generation for hundreds of years, and almost every generation of 9 Snake Pirates captains are strong men who once ruled the seas. At the same time, Virgo seemed to have reacted, and said in a deep voice, "The 9 Snake Pirates have disappeared for many years." Of course, after all, the captain came here to be the proprietress of the tavern. Doflamingo said with a smile. "It's dangerous to know too much, little brother." Shao-Chi put a glass of brewed wheat beer in front of Beckman, and said to Doflamingo, "Fooferfer, I'm not a marine, but I don't have the bad taste to disturb other people's secluded life." Doflamingo said with a smile. "So, the young master of Don Quixote's family, you really don't want to come here just to ask me for 2 glasses of wine?" Shao-Chi quickly brought Virgo another glass of bubbletree tea and wine, and then when he squatted down to get the treasured 9 Snake Island wine, he asked casually. Obviously, as the biggest information dealer on the Sabaody archipelago, Mrs. Shao-Chi has already recognized Doflamingo. Cough. Doflamingo cleared his throat, and then said seriously, "Next, we are going to go to the Fishman Island, so as to enter the New World, but Mrs. Shao-Chi, you also know that you want to go to the Fishman Island. That's very dangerous, you have to do the coding work well. I'm not familiar with the Sabaody archipelago, so naturally I hope to find a good coding artist. If you're not familiar with the place, you won't find me here, master young master." Shao-Chi stood up and said jokingly. Doflamingo didn't deny anything, just smiled. Shao-Chi didn't seem to care about these anymore, and quickly said, "So, you are here for my old lay? I heard that the Roger Pirates have entered and exited New World countless times. Except for the first few times, the follow-up coding on the Oro Jackson was all done by Senior Rayleigh. Is it true or false?" Doflamingo asked with a smile. When his voice fell, his eyes were still looking at the door of the tavern behind him. At the same time, a handsome middle-aged man with blonde hair, wearing blue overalls, carrying a toolbox in his hand, and a pair of glasses on the bridge of his nose, walked in from the door. One Piece's right arm Plute and Hibaz Rayleigh. Compared with the gray-haired and slightly scruffy image 20 years later, Rayleigh at this time is obviously younger and more energetic. "Ha ha ha ha, the juniors know about such trivial matters." Rayleigh laughed and walked in from the outside. Then, he looked at Doflamingo and asked curiously, "This guest looks a little familiar, but I'm getting old guy, I can't remember it for a while." "Let me introduce myself, Senior Rayleigh." Doflamingo was about to speak, but Shao-Chi at the bar complained. "Then you are really confused, Don Quixote Doflamingo. During the live broadcast of Logue Town, didn't you say to the guy who said the phrase of the era of pirates has Kamea to the phone bug, that he has foresight and foresight?" When Rayleigh heard this, he patted his thigh and said, "It's you, the guy who works with Sengoku at North Blue." Rayleigh himself has no airs, and his personality is also very carefree, and the proprietress Shao-Chi is the same. In addition, now that his identity has been exposed, naturally there is no need to hide anything, so he chatted with Doflamingo very quickly. "It's a bit curious to say that you were also attracted by Roger's big secret treasure, and you want to go to New World to find it?" Rayleigh asked this sentence suddenly while chatting. Doflamingo thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "I don't think so. Compared with the so-called treasure of One Piece, I have another goal." Rayleigh nodded when he heard that, and he didn't talk about this topic anymore. He didn't intend to explore what Doflamingo's so-called other goals are. "There is no problem with the coding. On the Sabaody archipelago, my old lay's skills are still very good." After Doflamingo mentioned the coding, Rayleigh also readily agreed. Doflamingo's new flamingo was a bit big. Rayleigh shook his head when he saw it. "Your ship, I estimate that it will take about a month to complete the coding," Rayleigh estimated. "This is a big project. Thanks to the fact that the Cervantes under construction can fly, otherwise, the coding would have to last for a year or 2. It's horrible." Doflamingo was standing next to Rayleigh, who was carrying a tool bucket. He was not surprised to hear this. In the original story, it took 3 days at the fastest to coat the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates. This new flamingo is much bigger than Sunny. Couldn't it be more staffing? Doflamingo asked. Coding is not that simple. It is best to do it by one person. In this way, the quality and level can be kept consistent. It will be safer after entering the deep sea. If there are more people, everyone's technology and feel will be different. Yes, you can't see that tiny bit with glasses. But the seawater can't lie. Rayleigh shook his head immediately and said, professional things are left to professional people. As the best coder on Sabaody archipelago, Rayleigh's suggestion was immediately adopted by Doflamingo. Then there's nothing left to do, leaving only Doflamingo to speak. Although getting along with you is quite pleasant, but the friendship belongs to the friendship. The amount of work you charge is very high. Rayleigh raised his brows. After the disbandment of the Roger Pirates, there was no Oida treasure as imagined. It can be said that everyone disembarked empty-handed. The same is true for Rayleigh. After he came to the Sabaody archipelago, he met Shachi and lived together. At the beginning, he had some spare money, but it didn't take long for Fuli to spend it. So for a long time, Rayleigh has been eating soft food. Although Genki doesn't care, Rayleigh still has some self-esteem. Therefore, after hanging around for a while, he successfully found a new life path, and successfully changed his job from pirate to film coder. For Rayleigh, he now regards this as a job. How could he not charge? Hearing this, Doflamingo couldn't help complaining. Yesterday, the tavern in your house was already expensive enough. After drinking a few glasses of wine, it cost me more than 2 million Baileys. It's a black shop. What you said, didn't you see the name of the tavern? It's been said to be a rip-off tavern, and you still want to go in and drink. Do you blame me? Rayleigh also said very confidently. Doflamingo was too lazy to argue with him, and asked directly, how much is this coding? Cough. Rayleigh rubbed his chin, and then calculated, the material cost and labor cost add up, and I will count you 1,000. Seeing Doflamingo's gloomy face, Rayleigh hesitated for a moment and said, 12 million, the cost price. You know I have to spend at least 1 month with you, and in 1 month, I can at least plate 4 ships, each ship let alone 3 million Baileys. Do you think it is the cost price? Doflamingo thinks so too. If, like the Sunny, Rayleigh is lucky, he might be able to coat 7 or 8 ships a month. Sabaody archipelago's coding price is about the same as what he said just now, at least 10,000. In this way, 12 million Baileys is indeed quite cheap. Doflamingo immediately said, that's it, I'll leave it to you, Senior Rayleigh. Hey. Rayleigh waved his hand, and then said, I'm not a pirate now, so don't call me senior, just call me Lao. Everyone on the island calls me that. You've already said that, I'm not polite, Lao. Doflamingo immediately agreed. After a period of time, Doflamingo took a leisurely vacation on the Sabaody archipelago. Basically, he had nothing to do. During the day, he either lay in the hotel or went out for a walk. At night, when Rayleigh was done with work, he went to go to the tavern with him for a drink or two. The rest of the members of the Donquixote family are not bad, and they haven't encountered any bad things, so they relax after a long absence. Especially that guy Beckman. I heard that he was still on the island talking about a love affair that lasted for 2 nights with a daughter of a noble family who yearned for a life of freedom and adventure. Relying on his own charm and sweet words, this guy didn't spend a dime. I heard that the money to open a room in the most expensive mangrove hotel in Sabaody archipelago was paid for by the noble lady. As a result, on the 3rd day, the noble lady said that she would take Beckman home to meet her parents and prepare to get married or something. The old scumbag got rid of him by going to the toilet that afternoon. After returning, he was despised and ridiculed by the cadres of the Donquixote family and the young master. Since then, Beckman has been dubbed the emotional liar in the Donquixote family. On the street of Sabaody archipelago, Beckman looked very vigilant, observing the situation everywhere, for fear that his fiancée copyrightee would suddenly jump out and catch him. Doflamingo walked aside, holding a plate with Sabaody archipelago's special puffed meat on it. He ate it with a toothpick, and couldn't help saying, Beckman, you are such an asshole. No, let me explain. Beckman wanted to defend himself. I won't listen. If you have anything to say, go and explain it to your fiancé. Doflamingo rolled his eyes and said, Hey, you, aren't you the same recently, changing girlfriends every now and then? Why do you speak of me so confidently? Beckman said angrily. Hey, don't get me wrong. Doflamingo said very confidently. My so-called girlfriends all knew from the beginning that this was just a chance encounter. I was looking for sex, and they might it's for beauty, maybe it's for money, but after it's done, neither owes each other, and forgets each other in the world. I never play any emotional games with innocent little girls. You are different, you are a scumbag who cheats people's feelings. Beckman felt a little heartbroken by what Doflamingo said, and murmured. At first I saw her take the initiative, I thought she was just playing. Who knows? Beckman regretted his bad behavior here, and muttered something in his mouth. But when I looked up, I found that Doflamingo didn't seem to be listening at all. Taking a closer look, Doflamingo was standing under the shade of a tree with a slight smile on his mouth, holding a plate and looking towards the commercial street in the distance. There is a store showcase facing the street, which is a huge transparent tempered glass, but the exhibits inside are not clothes, special products or the like. It's human, real human. A blonde beauty with a slave collar around her neck. Apparently, it was a flagrant slave trade shop on the Sabaody archipelago. Generally speaking, for a shop like this, the owner behind it is very powerful, otherwise it would be impossible to be so arrogant. Beckman followed Doflamingo's line of sight, and then said in surprise, "Should I say it or not? This girl is really beautiful. You like it? Why don't you go and save her from suffering?" Doflamingo inserted a piece of puffed meat from the dinner plate into his mouth and began to chew, then said with a smile, No, I'm not looking at that beautiful lady, but that down-and-out man." Beckman looked over there with some doubts, and then he said with a slightly strange expression, "Cough. Is that guy who seems to be singing to this blonde beauty?" "That's right. Right now, outside the showcase, by the side of the street, a guy wearing a cheap suit with gray-green hair. What an unlucky guy, singing there. But let alone, although that guy looks like a poor boy, he looks really good." This sent a chill down Beckman's spine. "Dude, I've had enough of Doflamingo asshole, is it time for a change? If I disembark now, is it too late? Cough. Dover." Beckman cleared his throat and called out to Doflamingo in a very deep and serious tone. At this time, Doflamingo was eating snacks and enjoying the song of the down-and-out poor boy. He didn't notice the change in Beckman, and responded casually, "What's wrong? How should I put it? Cough. I know that your aristocratic circle has always been quite chaotic, especially your celestial dragons. You should have seen a lot when you were younger. Unknown currency. A special hobby, but I think, people at least. Cough. You are a man with self-control, you must overcome your pursuit of these pervert desires. So, next time I will introduce two beautiful girls to you. By the way, one more time in 5 or 6 days, the coating of our boat will be completed, and then we can go to see the mermaids on the Fishman Island. You must persevere." With Beckman's smart brain, when he spoke at this time, he didn't know how to be more polite. Doflamingo asked in a daze after listening, "What the hell are you talking about? Can you be more direct?" "Then let me just say it straight, if you really change your orientation from a woman to a man, I will definitely get off the boat. It's too dangerous," Beckman said sonorously. "Are you somewhat ill?" "But soon," Doflamingo reacted and said angrily, "You bastard. Why are you so dirty in your mind? I am admiring the beautiful love of others, what are you thinking? Poignant love?" Beckman was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Didn't you fall in love with that green hair?" "Nonsense." Doflamingo cursed in embarrassment. Doflamingo has already recognized the pair since he saw the pair just now. The beautiful blonde-haired beauty slave locked inside is Stella. And the one standing outside is called Gilder Tetzolo. The famous Golden Emperor in the future is still a love brain at this time. But to be honest, Doflamingo still respects Tetzolo and Stella's love that started from the smallest details but is true and pure. Especially with Beckman as a comparison, Doflamingo appreciates their relationship even more. It's fine if you don't meet, but if you do, Doflamingo is ready to help. What's more, Tetzolo himself has the potential to be invested in a restaurant across the street from Doflamingo and Beckman. At this moment, Virgo is eating with Gladius and Senor. Virgo, who is a foodie, has been on Sabaody archipelago for almost a month, and he has eaten almost all the restaurants here. And this place is a restaurant that he thinks tastes and features are very good, and today he specially brought Gladius and Senor to try it. "You eat this. I heard that it is a unique bubble sea beast near the Sabaody archipelago, so their meat is also called bubble meat. It is smooth and tender, and it is very delicious," Virgo said. Senor doesn't trust Virgo's taste. After all, this guy always eats some weird things. But this time the bubble meat still looks quite appetizing. So Senor went to try it with half belief. Just as Senor took a bite of the meat and was about to say something to Virgo, the door of the restaurant was pushed open again, and then a group of people walked in. The guy in the lead was very tall. Gladius measured it with his eyes, and it must have been about 7 meters. His skin was pale and ugly, like a ghost, and he had 10 wine-red hairs. When he entered the door, he brought a very unruly smile. grinning his mouth, revealing a mouth full of fangs. Gecko Moria. After Doflamingo, the guy also crossed the first half of the Grand Line to the Sabaody archipelago. Guess it's time to prepare for coating, and then go to the Fishmen Island? But what is certain is that Moria should not have used the unreasonable thriller bark later, otherwise, Rayleigh could have come to coat the coating for a year or two. Who looks arrogant? Virgo asked casually. I don't know. Gladius shrugged. Senor had some impressions of Moria, and said, it seems to be called Moria, right? He came from West Blue. The young master mentioned him last time. In Logue Town, he fought with that Sakazuki from Marine. Won, and finally got away. Oh. You said that, I remembered, Virgo said immediately. However, there is no conflict between the two sides, and even if it is really counted, it can be regarded as colleagues who have fought with Marine together. After Moria brought her younger brothers in, she also sat in the dining room and quickly ordered a lot of things. Then, a group of people started to brag and fart. It can be seen that the atmosphere of Moria's pirate group is also very relaxed and comfortable. When they get along, although they have different identities, they are more like friends. There is even a younger brother who is making fun of Moria, but Moria is not angry, and laughs and jokes with them. It can be seen that Moria's pirate group is indeed Moria's precious treasure. No wonder this guy fell into a slump after being wiped out by the Kaido group. It's not without reason after thinking about it. Coupled with the fact that he went to Hive Island to work with Blackbeard teach for his subordinates, it can be seen that although Moria is an evil pirate, she really has a lot of love and righteousness for her own people. They are eating and drinking here. Suddenly a younger brother of Moria said, Boss, the table opposite seems to belong to the Donquixote family. There is a person in it. When he was in Logue Town, he was always by Doflamingo's side. I remember it. Moria froze for a moment, looked over there, saw nothing unusual after seeing Virgo and the others, turned around and said, yes, that's it. He has nothing against Doflamingo, and there is no reason for conflict. What's more, since Doflamingo isn't here, if you make trouble with other people's younger brothers, isn't it a drop in value? Moria didn't intend to communicate with Virgo and others, but his younger brother was a little unconvinced. The newspaper said that Don Quixote Doflamingo is the leader of pirates in the new era. It's ridiculous. If you want me to say, you are the boss, a younger brother complained. Moria was arrogant, even if he didn't intend to conflict with Doflamingo, but at this time, he would not admit that he was worse than Doflamingo, so he didn't refute anything. He didn't open his mouth, but Gladius, Doflamingo's #1 fan, heard the words right away, and immediately slammed the table and said, you trash is qualified to judge my young master. My young master is amazing, incredible. Before Moria could react, his younger brother also slammed the table and said, HMPH, Mrs. Moria is 7 meters tall. Moria. Is this something to brag about? Why all of a sudden? When my young master was at his peak, he could change 42 girlfriends a month. Gladius also showed off. Virgo also looked at Gladius, who started to get up inexplicably, in a daze. What's there to brag about? Across the street, Doflamingo sneezed inexplicably. He looked around, with a puzzled expression. What's wrong? Beckman asked. It's nothing. I just always feel that someone is hacking me. Doflamingo hesitated for a moment. In the dining room, when the younger brother heard this, he didn't understand it, but he was not convinced. He immediately thought about what he thought Mr. Moria was very good at, and then his eyes lit up and said, Mr. Moria dares to sleep with a dead body at night. You, the young master of the family, dare not. Moria, who hadn't spoken all the time, turned pale and green after hearing the words of this society's death. Joke. What is this? My young master dares to drink blood. Gladius also said with a look of admiration. Virgo covered his eyes, feeling that if Doflamingo was here, Gladius would probably have been killed by now. What is drinking human blood? Moria's younger brother stood up from the chair, pointed at Moria's mouth and shouted. Did you see the fangs of my lord Moria? They are all from eating human flesh. Moria. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. When did I eat human flesh? What is cannibalism? My young master dares to eat it. Gladius still wanted to continue to compete. But the senor at the side quickly grabbed him and covered his mouth fiercely, fearing that this guy would say something like a tiger and wolf, and the young master would really find out by then. I'm afraid I won't be able to stay. On the other side, Moria also hurriedly covered her little brother's mouth. What the hell, if you blow it down again, I should eat celestial dragons. But to be honest, Although they felt inexplicable, Moria, Virgo and others didn't feel angry or anything because of it, they just thought it was a little funny. Even Moria nodded towards Virgo with a little embarrassment, and Virgo also smiled awkwardly and gestured. It may be that the atmosphere is really delicate. Obviously Moria and the others came late, but after Virgo and the others finished eating, they just got up and left. The two sides hesitated for a while, and finally walked towards the door together. As soon as she stepped out of the restaurant, Moria realized something was wrong. On the opposite street, everyone knelt down. Celestial dragons. Senor frowned, and immediately said, "There are celestial dragons over there." "That's the young master." Gladius saw Doflamingo standing under the shade of a tree on the other side of the street. Senor and Virgo looked at each other, and then said, "Go," to join the young master. This guy Moria had never seen celestial dragons before, so he became interested for a while, so he also walked over there, ready to stand a little further away, to see what the hell celestial dragons look like. At the same time, Doflamingo threw the dinner plate in the trash can beside him, looked into the distance, and muttered, "It shouldn't be such a coincidence, right? Could it be today?" "What today?" Beckman asked, biting a cigarette. "Become #1 in Jinman." Cough. Doflamingo said something indiscriminately. Beckman didn't understand, but Doflamingo was thinking, could it be that celestial dragons should buy Stella away today? A more miserable life for Tezzolo is about to begin? And he looked at the celestial dragons walking in the middle of the street. Why did he feel familiar? Just when Doflamingo was thinking about why this celestial dragons looked familiar, sure enough, because of Stella's beauty, the celestial dragons who were going to pass by here stopped suddenly. It is rare for this guy to not ride a slave, but walk around by himself. He walked to Stella's showcase with a little curiosity, and looked Stella up and down, while Tezzolo knelt on the ground, feeling extremely nervous. He was afraid that some terrible things would happen after this, such as, why does this world noble in front of him like Stella? As a result, he still hadn't given up on his idea, and Celestial Dragon said, "This woman, I want it." As soon as he opened his mouth, Doflamingo suddenly remembered. "This is my own cousin, Don Quixote, Saint Musgard. He was the guy who met the shipwreck on the Fishmen Island and wanted to kidnap Princess Otahime, and then he reformed himself for no reason, hammered that idiot Charles Ross during the World Summit, and was finally sentenced to death by the Knights of God. So he is Tezzolo's yellow hair. This is absolutely amazing, and judging by the arrogant appearance of Musgard, it seems that he has not reformed himself and is still in the rank of scum." As soon as the guy finished speaking, the man in black who followed him quickly said, "Yes, holy Musgard." As he said that, he was ready to spend money to buy Stella. At this moment, Tezzolo couldn't hold back anymore, and quickly said, "Master Celestial Dragons, Stella." He wanted to say something, but Musgard was not interested in listening, and said with a look of disgust, "Untouchable, I didn't allow you to speak. How dare you speak? Come on, give him to me to catch him, and I'll make him a slave." Tezzolo had thought about the arrogance and unreasonableness of the Celestial Dragons, but he never expected it to be so arbitrarily, and the time was a little confused. And the people around, although they didn't dare to look up, they looked at Tezzolo pitifully from the corner of their eyes. "Behind a house," Moria said with a sneer on the corner of her mouth, "Celestial dragons are really bad enough." But before he finished speaking, he saw a figure walking carelessly towards the location of the Celestial Dragons. Doflamingo. There was a look of surprise in Moria's eyes. Seeing that Tezzolo was about to be captured as a slave, Stella also panicked, but it was useless. Celestial Dragon's Musgardzan seems to be in a good mood, happy that he went out for a walk and picked up a beautiful woman. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. At this time, the guards around him also shouted loudly, "Who are you? Didn't you see that Master Celestial Dragons is here? If you don't want to die, hurry up." But before this guy could finish speaking, Doflamingo waved his hand violently, and a blade made of blood flowed past his fingertips, slashing the man's throat. And at the moment when the throat was cut open, the blood in the person's body spewed out at an incredible speed, and when Doflamingo's hand fell, a large amount of blood had already flowed along his blood blade and was taken back into his body. The guard who had just opened his mouth to shout had already turned into a mummy and fell to the ground, clearly dead. This situation made the surrounding Celestial Dragons guards panic. What kind of ruthless person is this? And Saint Musgard turned his head just in time, and then saw a tall figure standing behind him with a grinning grin. This startled Musijalu Dashang, and instinctively cursed, "You untouchable, how dare you!" Before he finished speaking, Doflamingo slammed his mouth open and slapped him directly in the face. Masquerade, it seems that you have forgotten our friendship when we were young. Masquerade was already in a daze at the moment, and the celestial dragon's guards around them finally reacted after a brief daze, and they were so frightened that they hurried up to fight Doflamingo. If this doesn't show up again, it is estimated that their whole family will have to be wholly light by Masquerade later. But before they really caught up, Masquerade looked at Doflamingo's expression with an evil and murderous smile, and for a while, his childhood memories seemed to return. That feeling of being dominated made him feel he shuddered. Cousin. Cousin. Masquerade instinctively responded while covering his face. And what he said made the surrounding celestial dragon's guards dumbfounded. Huh? Who was this saint from Don Quixote's family? Why haven't you seen him before? But very quickly, Masquerade seemed to react, and said viciously, Doflamingo, you are no longer celestial dragons, how dare you beat the noble? Yeah. F***K Doflamingo bastard, it's not celestial dragons anymore. I don't have to be afraid of him anymore. You can also avenge yourself when you were a child. How should I put it? Doflamingo has been a bad person since he was a child, and Masquerade, let alone, was actually quite honest when he was a child, but he doesn't know what's going on now, and he has become like this. Just because he was like a doormat when he was a child, Doflamingo, a bastard, often bullied others, robbing Masquerade of his things twice in 3 days, and slapping his ears every now and then. Anyway, among the celestial dragons of the same generation, it is estimated that there is no one who is more irritable and vicious than Doflamingo. This point, even his big cousin, Claudius Saint, can't compare. In short, Masquerade has a psychological shadow on Doflamingo. Masquerade, who still hadn't recovered from his senses, finished his harsh words, and Doflamingo smacked the guy's face with a big mouth again, and said viciously, What the hell did you call me? I'm giving you a chance to reorganize the language. Masquerade covered his face, with fear in his anger, and looked at Doflamingo with fear and grievance. After hesitating for a moment, he couldn't escape his psychological shadow after all, and said aggrievedly, Excuse me, cousin. Doflamingo nodded, then waved to Masquerade's guards and said, Didn't you see that our brothers are chatting? Get lost. The guards looked at San Masquerade, seeing that he didn't dare to have any objection, and dispersed in a desperate manner. At the same time, Doflamingo said, Stop kneeling too, let's all disband. The people kneeling by the side of the road also hurried away. Beckman came forward in some inexplicable way, and took Tetzolo and Stella away with a wink. At this time, at the back of the street, Gladius, who hadn't had time to pass by, turned his head abruptly, looked at the little brother next to Moria, and shouted, Did you see? My young master beat celestial dragons. The younger brother of Moria was very angry at these words, and said very unconvinced, So what? My lord Moria dares to kill celestial dragons. After finishing speaking, he turned his head to look at Moria and said, Really, Master Moria? Moria. I am your hammer. He slapped the little brother on the head, and said with a ferocious smile, Binnock, I think you want to be beaten, right? I have endured you for a long time today. As he said that, he didn't watch the excitement, grabbed the little brother and dragged him away. After a while, the little brother's wailing came from behind the wall. Lord Moria, I don't dare anymore. Ah, Daba. It won't work there. On the other hand, Doflamingo is also reminiscing with his big cousin. Come here, I'm not a devil, what are you doing so far away from me? Doflamingo said in a ferocious tone. Masquerade cautiously moved 2 steps towards Doflamingo, and covered his face, for fear that Doflamingo would slap him again. I ask you, how did you come to Sabaody Archipelago? Doflamingo asked. Masquerade hesitated for a moment, then said, No reason. I'm just tired of staying in Mariejois and want to come down for a breather. Doflamingo just asked casually, didn't go into the details, and said, I want the slave you saw just now, is it okay? No. Masquerade said quickly. What kind of slave is he? He has no interest at all right now, he just wants to send the devil Doflamingo away as soon as possible. How is Mariejois doing now? Doflamingo asked again. Masquerade looked at Doflamingo with a confused face, as if he didn't quite understand what he was going to answer. How about Mariejois? Just like that. What else? Seeing his stupidity, Doflamingo felt a little helpless, and said, Donquixote family, who is in charge now? Ah. Masquerade reacted, and said quickly, it's cousin Claudius. Is it really him? Doflamingo touched his chin and asked. Does my cousin want to be 5 elders? But he didn't think much about it. After all, it didn't have much to do with him. Doflamingo simply asked Muscarid a few questions and found that this guy is living like a fool. He doesn't know anything, so he has no interest. Look. Cousin, cousin, I don't hang out with Mariejois now, but our brotherhood for so many years must be very deep, right? Doflamingo patted Muscarid on the shoulder and said softly. Muscarid wanted to deny it. How can I have any brotherhood with a demon like you? You have bullied me since I was a child. But looking at Doflamingo's nuclear gaze, Muscarid did not dare to deny it after all, and could only nod aggrievedly. Yes, cousin. Oh, my cousin's life is hard. Doflamingo patted Muscarid on the shoulder and said. This is already an obvious hint. But as celestial dragons, Muscarid could not understand this, and said with a stupid face. Then cousin, you have worked so hard. Doflamingo was silent for a moment, feeling that he couldn't get around with this guy, so under Muscarid's unbelievable gaze, he slapped him in the face again and said. Forget it, stop talking nonsense, come on. Cousin knows that your kid is the most favored by your father at home, hand over all your pocket money to me. Cousin. Muscarid looked at Doflamingo with fear. I vaguely remember that when they were young, that bastard Doflamingo robbed him of his pocket money like this. 20 minutes later, Muscarid-san, who had just arrived at the Sabaody archipelago, hurriedly boarded his boat and returned to Mariejois without saying a word. He swore in his heart that he would never come to Sabaody archipelago again. How dangerous. At the same time, Doflamingo looked at the large check from the World Bank in his hand, and said happily isn't it just a matter of time? Although the money is not much, only 1.1 billion Baileys. But thinking that this is the support from his own brother makes Doflamingo very happy. Blood is thicker than water. This is really blood thicker than water. My good brother, Muscarid, I will never forget you. Thinking of this, Doflamingo couldn't help calling Mahabasis and said, Mahabe, you must take care of Rosinante for me. Yes, let him take 2 more barrels of medicine today. Why? There is no reason, just that I suddenly felt the strong family affection from Don Quixote's family. No matter how Rosinante is, he is also my dear relative, brother and brother. Plus, add medicine to me, and he must be cured. After hanging up the phone bug, Doflamingo collected the check, and at the same time, Beckman and others came over. At this moment, like a quail, Tetzolo looked at Doflamingo, not knowing what to do. The big guy in front of me not only beat celestial dragons violently just now, but also blackmailed celestial dragons a lot of money. This brought a great shock to the inexperienced Tetzolo, who only felt that Doflamingo should be the most awesome person in the world. Sanctuary a Mariejois. Pongal Castle, between the powers. This is the office of the 5 elders, but only 2 5 elders are here today. They are the military god of law, Topman Vochalison, with a huge mustache, and Jagolucia Sakhunson, the god of scientific defense with curly white hair. The other 3 were probably busy with their own affairs, so they weren't there. The judicial marshal god Vouchery held a briefing in his hand, and after reading it, he handed it to Satan Shengdao. Look, what happened on the Sabaody archipelago yesterday? Sabaody archipelago? Satan Sheng took the briefing and asked with some doubts. Did something happen on the Sabaody archipelago? After looking down for a while, he was a little surprised and said, This Doflamingo. Does it look familiar? Don Quixote Doflamingo. Is that brat, the one you said he was bad and swollen when he was a child? Saint Vachuli said softly. Oh. So that's it, Huo Mingu, the son of that stupid traitor. Satan Sheng suddenly realized. This kid Doflamingo, when he was celestial dragons, did a lot of crimes on Mariejois. Even Saint Satan had an impression of his evil, and once said that he was bad and oozing pus. Interesting. Have the original celestial dragons degenerated into pirates and become our enemies? Saint Satan smiled, and then asked. He beat Muscarid, the Don Quixote family. Is there any movement around? That fellow Muscarid himself didn't make a big deal out of it, and that fellow Claudius also suppressed the impact of the matter. In the final analysis, this is just an internal matter of the Don Quixote family, and even people there is no room for meddling. Saint Vachuli shook his head and said. Sa Tan touched his chin, thought for a moment and said, It seems that the Don Quixote family wants to increase their influence outside. But if I remember correctly, does this Doflamingo have a big grudge with them? It should be quite big. It was a few years ago. I can't remember. Anyway, this bad pus guy killed Homingcourt, and he held Homingcourt's head and said he wanted to go back to Mariejois. He wanted to continue to be celestial dragons, but the Don Quixote family strongly opposed him, and finally drove him out of Mariejois, said Vachuli Street. That's really a lot of hatred. Claudius, an arrogant guy, thought he could settle his feud with Doflamingo? Sa Kunsheng sneered. He. That guy wants to take our place, and he also wants to increase his influence in the Knights of God. His ambition is really big. Saint Vachuli also said with a mocking smile. It's a pity that he doesn't understand at all what our position represents. Sa Tansheng responded calmly. Then, both of them were silent for a moment. Inexplicably, Vachuli said, occasionally I will imagine. What is the illusion? Satan asked in a low voice. If I pretend to be a celestial dragons who don't know anything and think they are supreme, it's actually pretty good, isn't it? Saint Vachuli responded with a slightly complicated tone. Sa Tansheng was silent and did not speak. After a while, they agreed not to discuss this topic, but talked about Doflamingo again. This is not a big deal. You suddenly showed me Doflamingo's briefing. Is there any deep meaning? I didn't pay attention to this little guy before, but the noise he made on the Sabaody archipelago yesterday made me a little curious, so I paid attention to his past. Saint Vachuli paused here. Then, he looked at Sa Tansheng and continued. Back then you said he was the worst guy in this generation of celestial dragons. Now, you have to add some new evaluations. What evaluation? Sa Tansheng asked curiously. This kid started from nothing in North Blue and became the most powerful force in North Blue's dark world. His Donquixote family, which is like playing house, has a very strong influence in North Blue, and his relationship network is very complicated. Almost all the princes and nobles in North Blue have a certain connection with him, and our Mariejois people work in North Blue, and occasionally need his assistance. Saint Vachuli raised his eyebrows. Oh? Sa Tansheng said in surprise. This kid's wrist is very powerful. Not only that. What surprised me even more is that his personal strength is also extremely good. You know, he is only 20 years old this year. No, he will only be 20 years old in October this year. But before that, in North Blue, he fought fiercely with Sengoku from Marine for 6 days, and finally escaped from Sengoku. I transferred some information about him from Marine, and found what everyone knows is that not long ago, he defeated Sakazuki by an overwhelming advantage in Sky Island. Vouchery said in a very appreciative tone. Sakazuki. Is that Magma Kid? Marine is cultivating it as a future admiral seedling, that is to say. This Don Quixote Doflamingo, who was born in Nokiko, with his own efforts, as can you defeat the admiral seedling who has been formally trained by Marine and has a lot of resources? Sa Tansheng also said with some surprise. Yeah, this time and again, it can highlight this kid's power even more. The current information shows that he is Zone's Phantom Beast ability user, and his ability seems to be a vampire. Marine's evaluation of him is survival ability. It is a very strong monster, but it lacks a certain attack power, and its shortcomings are obvious, but this information may be outdated. If it is really lacking in attack power, it will not be able to defeat Sakazuki with an overwhelming advantage, right? Vokuli Saint said. It seems that not all of the celestial dragons of this generation are trash, but the favorable environment on Mariejois made them willing to degenerate. If this kid were placed on Mariejois, with his current strength, entering the Knights of the Gods is not a bad thing. Sa Kunsheng commented. This generation of celestial dragons, to be honest, doesn't have many that make 5 elders stand out. It was the Doflamingo who came out at this time, which surprised them. Even the self-righteous Claudius, who looked like he was holding a wisdom pearl, was actually nothing more than a fool to the 5 elders. It's just a jumping clown, who can't even see the truth clearly. After thinking for a while, Saint Satan suddenly said, that guy Claudius has already started to win him over. That's right, he also used the power of the Donquixote family to put pressure on naval headquarters to a certain extent, Vachuli said. HMPH, he thought he would be better than Doflamingo. After all, he was just a greenhouse flower that grew up smoothly on Mariejois. Maybe he was a little clever, but how could he understand that Doflamingo, who has experienced wind and waves, can still thrive? It is impossible for a guy who has grown up to be loyal to an egomaniac like him. Sa Tansheng mocked. But we can. Saint Vachuli said confidently. From the perspective of 5 elders, a clown like Claudius cannot hold back a talent like Doflamingo, but as the 5 elders of the highest celestial dragons, obviously qualified. And Doflamingo's current strength and influence are indeed worthy of some investment. Yes. Sa Tansheng said after thinking for a moment. Although he has fallen to heaven, he is the same as us, with the blood of 20 kings flowing. In the final analysis, if Doflamingo didn't show anything special, or as in the original story, it was powerful, but not so powerful that it made the 5 elders noticeable. For power holders like the 5 elders, Doflamingo is just a clown. who can find a large number of substitutes at any time, not much different from Claudius. And when the situation becomes like this, when Doflamingo can be appreciated by them. The blood flowing through his body is very important. In the eyes of the five elders, they have no enmity with Doflamingo, and it was not them who drove Doflamingo out of Mariejois again. If there is no enmity, if they invest in Doflamingo. When Doflamingo really grows up to be useful, his blood will be crucial. Because, this is who they really are. Even if power is to be rotten in the pot, it must be in the pot of 20 descendants of the king. You can pay attention at the right time. What does this guy want? Sa Tansheng asked after thinking about it. 7 warlords of the sea. Saint Vachuli laughed and said, this kid has made some small moves on Mariejois, trying to promote him to become 7 warlords of the sea through some relationships. I have to say, his eyes are still quite vicious. Looking at it this way, he does meet our expectations for 7 warlords of the sea. After pondering for a while, Sa Tansheng said, in that case, let's give him the title of 7 warlords of the sea. I think so too. I will let him know that we can give him what that idiot Claudius can't give him. Of course, the premise is that he can show enough value. Saint Vachuli said with a smile. Judging from his experience, he is a smart person, so he will know how to choose. Sa Tansheng calmly responded. Not to mention the 7 warlords of the sea. If Doflamingo is really good and can benefit the 5 elders, or even the world government, even if this kid wants to restore the identity of the celestial dragons, it is not impossible. After all, this guy really has the blood of 20 kings flowing. As long as the interests are in place, there is nothing that cannot be traded.